Right, it's 6 o'clock and I'll call tonight's meeting of the Canandaigua Town Board to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilperson Adeline Rudolph.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Heather, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember John Casey,
Present.
Deputy Supervisor Terrence Fenley,
Present.
Councilmember Adeline Rudolph,
Present.
Councilmember David Sauter,
Present.
Supervisor Jared Simpson.
I am here. And can you confirm the meeting was properly advertised?
It was.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody out to tonight's meeting. It's nice to see a full crowd for multiple presentations that we have, I assume. So thank you for taking time out of your evening to come out and join us. We do have the communications binder with written records of communication circulating. It was on the table and it should be out if anybody has any interest in looking at that. Since I will forget this, if I don't do this right now, I would like to recognize the birthdays for this month. We have Crystal and Lask, one of our clerks. We have Leah Rom, Larry Tyler, Bob LaCourse, Amanda Van Laken, Tim Schneider, Kelly Lavoy, and Scott Kiesel. So a happy birthday to all those volunteers and employees who have birthdays in the next cycle.
We had one more that was Miss Michelle Robinson.
Okay, and happy birthday to Michelle as well. So notice that was not I did not miss that one. That was on there. So usually I forget these. So usually it's all my fault and halfway through the meeting. Yeah, so that other ones come at me. That one, thank goodness. But thank you very much for that. We do have our first privilege of the floor for the evening, which is an opportunity for citizens to express their thoughts and concerns and questions that they have. So would anybody like to speak at the first privilege of the floor? Seeing no hands, do we have any hands online? All right, do not see any at this time. All right, so the first privilege of the floor is closed. We do have priority business with 3 presentations. We have 3 presentations tonight. Our first one is Doug Merrill and Ellen Palomini, council member of the city of Canandaigua. And they are presenting on behalf of the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association. So I'll turn the time over to you folks.
No, thank you. Ooh. First of all, thank you very much for having us here this evening. Doug and I have been doing this, he reminded me tonight, since March of 22. We have visited all of the municipals within the watershed. And you might say we say best for last because this is our last one tonight. And so I will start by telling you that it's been a wonderful opportunity to get around and talk with the elected officials in all of the townships, the villages, and cities. Also, issues have not changed. In fact, I was sharing with Doug an article that I found that I had written in 1988. Actually, September 26, 1988, that the Messenger graciously published, called Frustrations in Addressing Lake Issues. And tonight, we're right back talking about the lake and the importance of it to the Canandaigua area. So next slide.
We did lose the mic, it sounds like. So is the mic off?
I think she's just.
Okay, all right.
You can pull it off.
How's that?
It's easier. You can
No.
pull it right off.
Is it on?
I just know we will be able to hear it, but those
Yeah,
online would
Oh,
not
I see.
be able to.
Okay. All right, well, you can skip this one.
We all.
I know many of you quite well, actually. The Canandaigua Lake watershed is such an important piece for the entire existence of the lake. And it is made up of 3 major groups. It's made up of the Watershed Commission. And many people don't even know of the Watershed Commission. The commission is made up of those municipalities that draw water from the lake. So Gorham, Middlesex, Newark, Palmyra, and Canandaigua. And their goal or their mission is to keep Canandaigua Lake healthy. So that's one group. Another group is the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council. And that is something that we started several years back. And it is comprised of the elected leadership of each of the municipals surrounding the lake. So Supervisor Simpson sits on it from Canandaigua Town. Palumbo sits on it as mayor of Canandaigua. And then each of the other municipals have a leadership role. It's also the group that the town supports with a yearly stipend. And again, their goal is to make sure that. Thank you. Their goal is to be sure, again, that they're addressing the health of the lake. And the group that is remaining is the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. That is a group of individuals, public, many of you here probably are already members of the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association. And one of the things that we do at the end is we ask you, if you're not, please take some literature that we have along and think about becoming a member. It's we as the public who say, you know, we want to make sure that we're keeping the lake healthy. And so what we're going to really do, or what Doug is going to really do, is go into a lot of the science regarding some of the issues with the lake, as well as some of the governmental things that we are facing as far as development and so on. It just keeps dying on me. So anyway, I'll just shout. So if we could have the next slide. All right, so my cohort is Doug Merrill, and Doug is a retired professor from RIT, but he lives in the city of Canandaigua, and he's been very, very active with Canandaigua Lake Watershed. But the one thing that he brings to us is a lot of the scientific importance, matters such as the zebra mussels and the glugger mussels and the foam, and how all of this is related. So Doug, I'm going to ask you to come up and take over, please. And again, I want to thank all of you for allowing us to be here.
Not sure it works to even hold this thing, right?
It's nice.
We're getting the batteries.
As Ellen said, I'm a retired professor from RIT, and the hardest thing for a professor, or even a retired one, to do is to speak briefly about anything. And I'm going to try really hard to speak briefly with you about some issues that are really, really important to all of us. And so if I could have the next slide. I think perhaps many in this room share with me some really fond memories of Canandaigua Lake. Back when I was just a kid, my grandmother and grandfather owned that little tiny cottage on East Lake Road. Fondest memories of my childhood, swimming and boating, and skiing, and just spending time on this lake. So about 9 years ago, we started having grandchildren. And my wife and I thought, could we find a place on Canandaigua Lake? Could we find a place where our grandchildren can start to enjoy and create some of those memories that I remember so fondly from my own childhood? And so we found this townhouse at the north end of Canandaigua Lake, right in Town Harbor Island. And on the next slide, you'll see that we're having some success with our grandkids. We have 6 now. 4 of them are absolute water bugs when it comes to the lake. And they love the lake. They're learning how to swim. And we haven't quite got to the point of learning how to ski yet, but they're getting close. 2 babies, still too early going to the lake, but their time is coming up next year. And it's been wonderful, but I got to tell you something that you already know, many of you. And that is that the lake that my two grandkids are jumping into in that top photograph is not the same lake I jumped into 65 years ago. It's a very different lake. That lake faces challenges that didn't exist when I was a child. And on the next slide, what we'll see is what some of these threats are to Canandaigua Lake. Many of them come from climate change. Others come from human activities, and probably most of them from some combination of the two. And I'm going to just focus on 4 categories of threats to the lake. One is runoff. The other is aquatic invasive species. The third is harmful algal blooms, the HABs that we hear so much about. And then finally, terrestrial invasive species. And so let's take a look at the first of these categories with runoff. Data show us that the frequency of really serious extreme rain events is increasing. Not only is the frequency increasing, but the intensity of these storms is increasing as well. And in fact, studies have shown that over the past 15 years or so, the frequency and the intensity of these storm events in the Northeast has increased by 55%. On the next slide, you'll see two pictures from this summer. And in fact, there was another flood event in April that I didn't put on this slide. On June 12th, that's what the Deep Run area looked like in Gorham as flood waters rushed down into the lake, carrying with it large amounts of debris. The other slide, of course, was July 9th, when something close to 5 inches of rain fell over a couple of hours and totally inundated the West Gibson Street and locations where Sucker Brook is draining from those farm fields into the lake. It was a catastrophe. We heard in City Council just recently from some of the people who lived in those areas and the devastation that this storm caused for them and their families. Some talked about things of their lives, important things, photographs and documents and pictures and that were totally lost and not to be retrieved. So this is our new normal, frankly. 100-year storms are not going to occur every 100 years. They're going to occur much more frequently. And I think it's going to be incumbent on all of us to try to figure out how we're going to deal with this. This is our new reality. And I think some of the ways that we have been thinking about stormwater retention in the past is just not going to be adequate with these new storms. And so on the next slide, you'll see that what happens when we get these big rain events is that they pick up all sorts of stuff on the land. And so if they're draining off of agricultural fields, they're going to pick up fertilizers, they're going to pick up insecticides, pesticides of all sorts, whatever they're putting on those fields. When it covers over urban landscapes, we're going to pick up a lot of petroleum-based products and other types of hazardous chemicals. Residential properties, the same way, pick up pet wastes as well as some human wastes, depending upon what the septic system conditions are. And of course, with new development, we're going to find all sorts of debris coming into the lake. And when that comes into the lake, it's also carrying something that I want to talk a little bit about later on. And that's some very dangerous insecticides called neonicotinoids. Now, I hadn't even heard of these until about 2 or 3 months ago. And I've done some studies since that time. These are neurotoxins. They're incredibly effective insecticides. They are deadly insecticides. They affect the nervous system of insects and spiders and crustaceans. Right now, in this state, we're applying about 90 tons of these insecticides on our farmlands in the form of coated seeds. The insecticide is placed on seeds for corn and soybean and wheat seeds. And it's a significant amount of impact. We know that evidence shows that it kills bees it kills pollinators, it affects bird species, and it's making its way into our aquatic ecosystem where it's affecting the aquatic insects. And they are foundational to the entire aquatic ecosystem. They support the fisheries. They support some of the other macro invertebrates. And so these are quite dangerous drugs, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them toward the end of this presentation. And so on the next slide, you'll see that essentially everything makes its way into the lake. Sooner or later, it makes its way into the lake. And this is a drone shot from 2021. And you can see this large plume of debris that's making its way through Sucker Brook and going out. Now, a few days before that last storm in July, I take samples of the lake. I monitor the lake for clarity. I'm using a Secchi disc, which is something maybe some of you have done before. I also look at temperature. And my point is about 2.5 miles down the lake from the north end. And a couple of days before that last storm, the water clarity was down to 7 meters, 22 feet or so. 3 days after the storm, I couldn't see lower than 2 meters. And that's 2.5 miles down the lake. And that was all the debris from that storm that came through in July. So that's runoff. On the next slide, what we do is we see something about a threat from our recreational activity on the lake. Now, none of us wants to stop recreation on the lake. It's foundational to our economy. But it bears with it some problems. And the problem that we see on the next slide is that a lot of these boats that are coming in have been to other places as well. And when they've been to other places, they may be picking up hitchhikers. We have zebra mussels, we have quagga mussels in the lake because they took a ride on other boats that came into our lake. And right now, we pretty much think that the quaggas are carpeting the entire subsurface of our lake. And they are changing the entire biochemistry and entire biology of Canandaigua Lake. We also are afraid of some of the aquatic plants that are making their way into the lake as well. If hydrilla gets into this lake, it's not here yet, but if it gets into this lake, Sucker Brook is going to look like that picture on the bottom left-hand side. It will become unnavigable. You cannot get this stuff out. It is just awful. You break it up and every new piece becomes a new plant. It will clog our water intake systems and it will clog our navigation. And so we've got to do something about this. The next slide shows us something else about climate change, and that is that our lake has been getting warmer. FLCC professors have been monitoring this for over 20 years, and the average water temperature with its fluctuations that we see throughout the year has increased by about 2.2 degrees. And one of the things that we know that happens with an increase in temperature is it changes the biology and the chemistry of the lake. And one of the things that changes is the availability of this interesting little creature that we'll see on the next slide. These are called cyanobacteria. They are incredibly ancient organisms. They've been around for 1 billion years. One of the most ancient of all of the organisms on Earth. They are photosynthetic, and they are responsible for much of our atmosphere having oxygen on it. So they've been doing good things for a long time. The problem with cyanobacteria, they're not algae, by the way, cyanobacteria, they're like primitive microbes. With climate change, they reproduce in larger numbers and they start to form these colonies and they produce toxins. They produce liver toxins, hepatotoxins, and they produce neurotoxins. And these are dangerous chemicals that they're producing. They do make it really challenging for our water purveyors to make sure that these toxins don't get into our drinking supply. But they're dangerous for a variety of other reasons as well, as you'll see in this next slide. They're a hazard to pets. Every year, pets and some livestock will die because they have drunk water that's been infested with this. These things called HABs, harmful algal blooms. It certainly wrecks the recreational opportunities. Even though I really regret to say that still people don't know that these are hazardous. And we have a wonderful, dangerously wonderful drone picture of a HABs outbreak and a family boating right in the center of it. And there's a kid in the water about to start skiing. And they obviously didn't know that they were sitting in the middle of a bloom. We need to do a better job of letting people know about what's going on to these. They're gonna wreck our economy. Property values are going to decrease. And who wants to swim in a lake that looks like that? Who wants to come and visit a lake that looks like that? Next slide, please. With warmer weather and warmer winters, we're starting to see a migration of insects from the south toward the north. They can survive longer because our winters aren't as bad as they used to be in the bad old days. And so now we're seeing this rogues gallery of insects. The spongy moth, used to be called the gypsy moth, has been around for quite a while. We know that it has this kind of episodic outbreak, and it can devastate deciduous hardwoods in a matter of a couple of seasons. The two that we're most worried about right now are the hemlock woolly adelgid and the spotted lanternfly. The adelgid feeds only on hemlock trees, and the hemlocks are found predominantly in these steep slope ravines that we have in this watershed. They support those ravines. Now, once infested, a mature 100-year-old hemlock tree will die in about 7 years. And once these trees start to die and are lost, now those steep slopes are unprotected. And we're going to get large amounts of runoff of all sorts of debris coming through those slopes that are no longer protected. The spotted lanternfly is a beautiful insect. It's large, and it's an absolute killer. It feeds preferentially on grapevines and fruit orchards. And what they can do to a vineyard in a season is unbelievable. They're not here yet. Well, actually, they're in the southern tier. We're watching very carefully for them, and hopefully we can keep them out of here. And so hopefully you're as terrified as I am by what I've been telling you. This is what got me to join the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association to address these threats. And so let's take a look at the next slide. This is our organization, and this is our mission. Essentially, what we want to do is preserve, protect, and restore the lake and its watershed. And to do that, we want to do three things. We want to educate, we want to do some science, and we want to promote and advocate for sound public policy. And so on the next slide, you can't do anything that big without having lots of partners. And we have lots and lots of partners working with us. Probably the most important partner that we have is the organization that Ellen talked about right at the beginning, and that is the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council. This is the intermunicipal agency that employs the watershed manager, Kevin Albani, and they do just wonderful, wonderful work. And congratulations to this town for supporting the council. We see some other partners as well. And as the next slides come up, you'll see their names and logos represented on the slides, and I won't keep mentioning them. So the next slide, we do a lot of science, and we have a lot of eyes on the lake. We're watching the lake all the time. And so this little graphic shows you all the places where our volunteers are measuring and recording and monitoring things that go on in the lake. We're looking for HABs. We're looking for changes in the chemistry. We're looking for changes in clarity, for pH. We're looking for temperature changes. So we're in the lake all the time. monitoring and trying very hard to figure out what's going on and making data available to our scientific partners. The next slide shows us one of the, do you recognize anyone on this slide? We made a presentation to the Rotary a few months back about our wonderful program that's been around since about 2018 called the Lake Friendly Living Program. And this is a program to encourage residents, municipalities, businesses to be smart about applying fertilizers and pesticides to their properties. And I believe that the town of Canandaigua has signed on essentially to the pledge, and you're not putting this stuff on public lands unless it's absolutely necessary for you to do so. And so we've got a couple of new members of our pledge for lake friendly living. We got to do something to prevent the hitchhikers from coming in, bringing all their invasive species into the lake. And so we've been supporting this thing called the Watercraft Stewards Program for several years now. You might not believe that the north end of the lake is one of the busiest marinas in the entire state. Back in the COVID era, 15,000 boats coming in and inspected in a season. And about 2 weeks ago, we were at 10,000. So we're probably going to be looking at 12 to 14,000 inspections a season. We pay for these young people to inspect the boats and encourage their boat owners to clean, drain, and dry their boats to keep out any of these species. So on the next slide, we took our game one more step. Last year, we brought in a boat washing station, and this is a great example of bipartisanship, which is something we don't hear about very often anymore. And this is where the city council, members of the town, Pam Helming, and at the state level, Department of Parks, got together and provided this boat washing station for us. And now we can clean these boats off when necessary. We're hoping to bring the next level is to get something like this into the Woodville launch at the south end of the lake, and also to get the marinas thinking very seriously when they're putting boats in and out, that maybe they want to put a boat wash station and inspectors there as well. Next slide, please. We're going to do a lot to protect our gullies from these insects. We monitor, we put out traps, we put volunteers in the woods, and we mark trees that are infected, and we arrange for insecticides to be targeted for these. This little picture on the bottom, we did some scrapings for the spongy moth, and basically prevented 22 million eggs from hatching into larvae that season. And all those bags are filled with the eggs from these invasive species. Next slide. Educating kids. We've been doing this for a long time now. In 2007, Ellen was very instrumental in bringing this to the fore. We're in the classroom all the time. We impact about 2,000 children a year. We're into 4 school districts, and we try to make these the future stewards of this lake and its watershed by letting them know what it is that they can do and how they can encourage their parents to be good stewards of the lake. We also spend some time with the adults in the community, as you'll see in the next slide. We sponsor a fairly large number of workshops and lectures and hikes and educational. We're the ones that converted over to these LED flares for the ring. What's it called? The Ring of Fire, to get away from the incendiary flares. Next slide. And we do a lot to inform the community. And so about 3 or 4 times a year, we put out this wonderful publication called The Lake Reporter, lots of stories about what's going on. And every Friday in the summer, we publish our water quality update, where we give citizens some real up-to-date information about what's going on in their lake. Are there HABs out there? Where did we find them? What do they look for? What do they look like? How can they identify them? What they should do if they see them? We put out some information after that last flood We've been monitoring for E. coli, and what we find is that some of these coliform bacteria that cause a lot of GI tract illnesses make their way into the lake following these large storm events. And you should not be swimming in these beaches when these microorganisms and bacteria are abundant. And then next slide. Promoting sound public policy. There was a bill that was in both the Assembly as well as the Senate for the state of New York called the Birds and Bees Protection Act. And it's a bill to ban the use of these insecticides as coatings for seeds and applied on places like golf courses and public parks. Surprisingly, it passed both houses. It's now sitting on the governor's desk to be signed. And as one of our efforts to promote sound public policy, we wrote a letter to the governor encouraging her to sign this legislation. We gave her several arguments, scientific arguments, to support our reasons for supporting this particular bill. It's an important bill, and it should be passed. And so I think that's the end. Thank you for letting us come and talk to you today about the threats to the lake and some of the things that we're doing to address those threats. We have this new office now that on Mill Street, kind of facing the public market, and encourage you to come by and see us sometime. Take the pledge, become a member, partner with us in any way that you would like, because I know that we all want the same thing. We want to preserve this lake and this watershed for future generations. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Yeah, I couldn't let you get too comfortable. Yeah, come on. Any questions from the board?
Comment.
Yeah.
I think that was a wonderful educational piece that you did there, and I commend your efforts, and I am a supporter of the CLWA and will continue to be a supporter. It's one of the charities that I give to from my salary here. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's wonderful. Any other members of the board are members of?
I would like to just comment, and I have definitely appreciated my time on the council and the service there. That provides a great service for the lake. We're so fortunate to have Kevin Albani and all those who work with him, and the knowledge that he brings and the passion that he brings to the lake. And that group has been able to do some fantastic things in conjunction with everything that you folks do. It's a good symmetry between public-private. And I'm also excited that as the town, we're hosting September 30th, we're hosting an event at Ononda in conjunction with the Land Trust. So the Watershed Association and the Land Trust. And we're hosting it. It's a presentation on September 30th. So I think I can speak for the entire board and the entire town. We very much appreciate the relationship that we have and all the benefit that you folks provide to us in the area.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much for those words. And let me add that we are so fortunate to have this organization on this lake. We spend a lot of time talking with the associations from other lakes, and they envy the fact that we have been able to get our municipalities around the lake to come together, to form a council, to hire a watershed manager, and to work so collaboratively on these projects. They envy us. And the work that you do and the work that Kevin does is just wonderful. It's not going to be enough. We're going to have to up our game.
We are.
After the last storm, we know that we've got to up our game. That's the reality of it.
All right.
I would ask a
Terry.
question, Doug.
Yeah.
The inspections that are done, just curious, what inspecting 10,000 volts takes considerable amount of time. Fortunate that we have volunteers to do that. What do they find? I mean, do you find a lot of stuff cleaning and that's cleaned out before
Was that boat washing station now,
Mhm.
before the boat's allowed to go?
Yes, yes, but it's voluntary. And what we're finding is that most of the boaters understand the importance of this and they allow their boats to be inspected. Every now and then we get some wise guys that say, nah, you know. And we're seeing a lot of repeat traffic, of course. So the people who basically never go anywhere else but into Canandaigua Lake, that's pretty quick for them. But every now and then we do find some vegetation that we would really like to keep out of this lake if we can. Hydrilla is in Cayuga Lake. And that's scaring everybody. I mean, this is a plant species that we do not want in this lake. So we're doing a lot there.
Has it been found at all in any?
Hasn't,
coming in?
from the best of our knowledge, our watershed stewards have told us they have not found it yet. They found a few other things that we'd also like to keep out, but not hydrilla yet. And that's the one we're really on lookout for. Yeah. Yeah, these kids do a wonderful job and they're necessary job and we probably don't pay them enough.
I will say it baffles me that I drive down by the lake on a nice weekend day. See all those trailers parked, right jacket, and all the boats quarter-mile away just sitting. It's a lot of money to spend to just go sit.
That's a conversation for a different time.
But I got an audience.
Yeah, right. You have a snowbox.
Any other questions? Thank you once again.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, second presentation of the evening is Tom from MRB with our Ononda Park. Greg's here too. I think Greg's just here for, I don't know why Greg's here. Yeah, sometimes I wonder why, yeah, Greg's just here. Yeah.
Good evening, Tom Farmer, MRB Group, as mentioned, glad to be here tonight. We have two slides for you. Why don't you jump to the other slide, Doug?
I noticed on your slide on this one, the seller of the land that we are purchasing from is also on the policy. It says recently acquired. We've not yet gone to closing on it, so.
Understand.
Potentially.
Potentially, yes.
Nearly acquired, hope to be acquired, let's put it that way. We're here tonight to provide you guys with an update to our Ononda Park upland improvements. As you may recall, back in November 2020, we started this process going through meeting with the town, working with the Parks Committee, looking at different opportunities and the functionality of the park, how it works and what works, what doesn't work. We've had several meetings with the Parks Committee group as well. Our last board meeting with you was in April. And after that meeting, we met again with the Parks Committee and kind of looked at what we were proposing, what gathered some more information from them. And we have an updated concept to share with you tonight. The map in front of you, as Doug mentioned, is kind of the overall part of the park. And what we're looking at is the basically 73 acres of the park. It's shown in yellow. It's a larger perimeter outside edge of it. The town is working on potentially acquiring an additional 13 acres, which is shown in red and striped area. The area that we're talking about is really this pre-disturbed existing open area. And again, the Lakeshore District is down on this side. That's about 7 acres. So all total, you have the 73 acres for upland, 13 potential acres, and this area is approximately about 8 acres. So that puts us into the next slide. As we looked at the park and spoke with the committees in town, our goals are very broad. It's basically to improve the accessibility for all residents, improve the use of the existing infrastructure, improve emergency access such as fire trucks and EMS, improve the four-season use for all at the park, improve cabin quality, provide bathrooms and restroom facilities in those cabins. The town has recently purchased one cabin which has ADA accessibility. Provide utility upgrades, which these utilities, some of our septic systems date back to 1990. Improve parking for the upland use and provide areas for overflow parking for uses at the lakeside section, as well as provide parking areas for Canandaigua Lake and winter activities, basically a spot where people could drive up top there, look at it, and kind of look out onto the lake during the seasons. So to walk you through the plan here, I apologize if I'm standing in front of you, but feel free to move over to where I was sitting. This is the existing entrance coming into the park. Right now, there is currently parking up and through here. You have a very steep access road that comes up to a pavilion located here. There's a cul-de-sac that works its way down. This is typically gated off. Kings Hall is located in this spot. We are looking at, our first improvements are to improve the accessibility as you're driving into the site, making this a little wider. There was talk at one of the meetings in regard to people walking through here with strollers and making that a little wider and making it more comfortable to do that as they work their way down here. There is a staircase over on this side, which still provides you access in that fashion. Right now, this area at times can be used for parking, but one discussion was developing this as a parking lot and a parking facility dedicated that it could be used seasonally. It's closer access to the lakeside down top. This road would be adjusted with our alignment, and that's doing two things. It's really to provide us for a better slope and accessibility for, as I mentioned, emergency vehicles, fire trucks, EMS, and just the general public to be able to come up to the upper areas. This allows us an area as well. We just heard the presentation in regard to stormwater management. Right now, there's an existing stormwater pond in this location built in the 1990s, does not have any water quality features. So as part of this project, in developing the additional impervious area, we would also provide a water quality feature. And so that would be in this central spot. This would be the new access point to the parking area. Parking, it would remain up top here in these spots. We might be able to obtain some additional parking on this side as well as potentially on this side. We're thinking about conceptually, again, looping these two parking lots, allowing you to have better circulation throughout the entire area. Buses do occasionally come down here and park as well for the different events. As you work your way back up, this little side road is to provide access to a basement storage area that the town uses in Kings Hall. This would now provide ADA parking and parking up top here, which Kings Hall currently doesn't. So to get to this spot can be a challenge. Most people either are parking down here and working their way up, or they're really trying to park very close here. As you may recall, there is a ramp for accessibility into this. As we work our way through, the road coming up through here is really intended not to disturb as much of the vegetation that exists up there, the trees. This is an existing playground that's not used very well. There is a basketball court up here too. We work our way up top, and the areas in orange are proposed cabins that we've been looking at. These would be ADA accessible cabins. These three potential cabins, this is where the current pavilion is. So again, we're trying to limit our disturbance, keep it in areas that are already cleared or disturbed. There are a total of, I'll walk you through the cabins existing. There's one cabin here. There's another one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This cabin was removed. So the goal would be to replace these cabins over in here with a new cabin area. These cabins in here would be some additionals. At one point, there were, in the history of the Upland Park, there were a total of 9 cabins. We're definitely, trying to keep that total or less, not add to that. The areas here that are shown in this tan color are the existing pavilions out there. Those would remain. This kind of provides some additional access, easier to get to. Right down here is the existing restroom facility. This cabin was removed, if I didn't mention that before. Again, accessibility, being able to drive around here. This would be a one-way road. We could have some additional parking spots. If you want to come up here and view the lake from this area, it provides a nice access point. The trailhead we left, we heard a lot of sensitivity and about maintaining that and keeping that. And so we still have that preserved and accessible that enters the other area. There's another trailhead that is further down in this location. And again, this provides some additional parking for that. That is our overview of our update, and here to answer any specific questions that you guys may have.
Any questions or comments?
Just a comment, I know that Mark McNeil and the Parks Committee spent a lot of time with you guys working and had a number of iterations of this design, and I think it looks pretty good. You guys did a nice job.
Thank you. I would agree. It's definitely been a collaborative and team effort.
I do like the product. I do appreciate you showing in the beginning, because I think in this close-up that we have, it's really easy to get lost in the fact that this is such a tiny portion of Ononda Park. And the amount of disturbance is so minimal, and the benefit that it will provide for our residents and those who, you know, can't make it up some of these trails, the steep driveways, all the restrictions that are there now. This will help to eliminate those. I like the plan and the iteration of it.
Waiting for me?
Yeah.
A few comments. I was just up there Saturday, and it was being well used. A lot of people up there, and a lot of people parking along the road, and obviously no one in a wheelchair can get up there. And I don't know if anybody in a wheelchair will be able to get up there in the future, but they can certainly drive up and hopefully get out in the parking spots that you have. At least up top. My question though is, how does a person get from there to the bathrooms?
It's a good valid point, and really the bathrooms are down here on the other lakeside are accessible bathrooms, but these bathrooms, they're not. And so that is a legitimate point on how do we address that. I see this being upgraded in future projects as well. You know, there is some grade challenges to get down here. It seems that this facility really is far off. We are closer here, but you know, maybe we can definitely look at that and see if we can get.
Are the bathrooms?
Let me finish, please.
It's-
I think that's a very important piece of the puzzle. Many people in our community are elderly, not only in wheelchairs, but a lot of them use walkers, canes, whatever the case may be. And I think if you go up there for an afternoon to spend with your family, and you do not have access to a bathroom, I think that's a problem. And I'd like to see it addressed. I want to see us spend money and then have many of our residents not be able to access the bathrooms.
Agreed.
The other points I would make is that the pathways to the cabins need to have some type of access to them that is accessible to most people. I don't want to say all people, because in some instances, it's not going to be possible.
So the cabins are actually front loaded up here. There's a kitchenette in the side. There's also a bedroom in the back. So these would all be accessible ADA. We envisioned all these ADA accessible as well as down and through here too.
And the last comment I have is that the only place I really see accessible parking are in the upper two lots. I'd like to see additional accessibility parking, maybe in other locations. I think that ADA right now is woefully inadequate. So I'm sure you're providing parking that will just meet the ADA requirements, and they haven't been revised since the ADA Act went into compliance back in the Bush administration. So I know that that is woefully inadequate. And I think, again, we have an aging population here in New York State and Canandaigua in particular. And I think we need to make more accessible parking available up there.
I would agree with you as well. It's one space per 25 and that can easily get filled up pretty quickly, whether you have the other events going down. And I think as well as on the lakeside, that needs to be reviewed too, the accessibility.
Thank you. Okay, Adeline hadn't commented yet, and then Dave got a comment. And see,
Well, the bathrooms in the cabins would be accessible, correct?
Yes,
And there are bathrooms in King Hall, correct?
there are bathrooms, that
They're accessible,
they are accessible.
right? So there is some ability now, but not enough, for sure.
I mean, honestly, John brought up a lot of the points that I was gonna bring up, which I kind of knew he would. Most of my comments were made at the Parks meeting and have already been put into this plan. I'm very excited about the upper parking, providing some access to that view shed for all sorts of our populations in the town of Canandaigua. I'm excited to see a potential with a few new spaces in the existing parking lot. Maybe that's an opportunity to add the ADA over there as well. And beyond that, you've protected the sledding hill, as we've heard from many residents that was important to do. And you also confirmed with me that that lower parking area is not in the upper view shed, so that will be protected from that. I did want to bring attention to the fact that your plan is indicating that we'll be removing that upper pavilion, which I believe had been determined was deteriorating at this point. And we do have the two other green pavilions shown on the map. And we did talk in the Parks Committee if it ends up warranting it as potentially adding another one down near the other parking area, if that's warranted.
Right down in here in the future.
So, but I'm excited with where it's come back to many iterations, and I'm excited with very excited by the reduced disturbance to the woods. So.
Aaron, do you have any? Mark, do you have any comments? I'm gonna put you on the spot from the Parks Committee.
This is the first time I've had a chance to see the update, but it's very encouraging to us as a Parks Committee that the feedback that we provided is reflected in this plan. So I know you've had a lot of other information that was in the July agenda. You know, it spoke to a lot of comments and things that we shared with MRB and some of the community members that shared. So this does reflect changes based on what the people have made. So it's encouraging, and I'm sure it's gonna be a big thing on, you know, our agenda on our Wednesday meeting and moving forward. So
All right, thank you. So I don't know that we need a motion or any action on this, but what I would like to request is that the Parks Committee review this and then make a recommendation to the town board regarding this, if this is something that we would like to pursue with those tweaks and changes involved to continue. Is that fair for everyone? Okay. We have a couple public questions, so.
Are you doing anything to improve the sledding? I'm 60, but I get dragged over there with my kids. And I end up avoiding rocks in the drainage ditch, and then I end up in this detention pond.
You're hauling if you make it down to the.
That
is impressive.
I mean, that would just be a nice addition to this project.
We can, I know some we're sledding off the top of the some of the pavilions out there, so we don't want to get too aggressive, but yes, we can look at that. There is as you mentioned, there is a drainage corridor that runs right through here. At one point, I heard it was kind of used as a toboggan area that could be funnelized, but
We could put a return, so you get enough speed and it can flip you back up.
I mean, we do, the parking should also help a little bit with that too, because you won't be lugging everything over to the parking lot, you park up top or in the, over by St. Paul as well.
They would just have to consider it when they
Yeah.
put up their guardrails and their ditches and whatever else.
Are the new cabins gonna be similar to the old ones? No insulation, just summer use, maybe fall use?
The intention is multi-seasonal use. I mean, they could potentially be 4 season. They're insulated, they have heat. They will have water in the winter. So bathrooms, showers year round. They're not the rustic type that we currently have. They're beautiful. So they're intended and they're able to be used year round.
And then what about if there's gonna be more winter usage, what about supervision at the park during the winter?
that is something that as we get to that point would have to be discussed and would have to be looked at and addressed. If there's, it's one of those usage need and then providing for that.
Okay.
Karen?
Yes, I want to advocate for John's subject of accessibility.
I do a pretty good job advocating.
But, you know, I don't use a chair, I use a cane, and walking is very difficult. I would suggest, and I thought we talked about this in Parks Committee, having the bathroom closer to the upper parking lot. Was it because of where the water is currently?
Right now, this is the existing restroom.
Yeah.
So not a new building.
It's not a new building.
Okay.
You know,
So-
it was mentioned, you know, Kings Hall is available here, you know, I think maybe some temporary parking signs to allow for ADA accessibility to these bathrooms. But again, trying to get down here, yes, you can look at that and making that accessible.
I just want you to keep that in mind. But the other question I want to ask is, we originally talked about a pavilion down by the lower parking lot. Is that something, and I know it wasn't something in the immediate plan, is that something that's still on the table for the future, or has that been lost?
It was kind of direction that I got from the committee at our last meeting with the Parks Committee, was that this could be a future. I mean, there's nothing to say that you can put a pavilion wherever you want on the site, but we, right now is an initial stage. It was kind of.
Initially, that was a smaller parking lot.
Yeah.
We had a pavilion there, and the feedback was there's a need for more parking at the lakeside. And that would be the spot to increase the parking that's closer to lakeside, and that.
So we tossed
That's
the
a higher,
pavilion
that's a
out.
higher priority than another pavilion down low.
I just, the old memory. It didn't stick.
It's
But
there.
accessibility is key, really is. And you know, you've heard it from 3 people now here in this little room.
Doug?
I'm not standing here, but
Oh, you have standing. You did a great presentation. That gives you standing. And whoever comes with Ellen will always have standing here. So.
I'm wondering, you're talking about more hard space, close to the lake. And have you talked with Kevin about making sure that whatever you do for water retention kind of accommodates that additional hard space?
We work closely with Kevin O'Baney on many of the projects actually that he's worked on as well. As I mentioned, this pond really didn't have any green infrastructure, and we are going to bring that to this, as well as whatever we're adding our impervious areas. We'll add more green space as well, and fire retention, stormwater quality and quantity.
Did Lindsay, do you have any comments? If you don't, that's okay. Just wanted to give you the
No, I
opportunity.
do. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just want to say, Tom, thank you. I think you really captured a lot of the public's feedback along with the Parks and Rec Committee feedback with this plan. Just overall, great job. I do think the increased parking will help a lot. I know we had a heavy focus on accessibility. And John, to your point too, which is public access restrooms, the plan was in the future to have a pavilion at that lower new parking space, which we would have, you know, public restrooms there too. But overall, I think it looks really good based on all the feedback from the public and the committee's feedback. So Tom, nice job. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. And again, it is a concept plan, so we still have opportunity to adjust it, however is desired.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, we have one more presentation, but before that, I just want to make we've had a lot of questions about the process since this is something new to us. So before Greg and Peter, before Peter presents and for German Brothers, I just wanted to share kind of where we are and where this process works. The incentive zoning process is new it's not new to the town of Canandaigua, but it's new to this board. It's some.
On the board.
Okay, so Let's forget Terry. So for most of us on the board, we do have an experienced voice, I'll put it that way. So for many of us on the board, it's a new process. We have not been through it. It's not something that we have engaged in very much. It's something that we have, a few months back, we passed, resolution and a local law allowing incentive zoning throughout the town of Canandaigua, which opened up the RLD, the Residential Lake District, for that. So like I said, it's not something that we've done very often, and a lot of people have questions. So I just want to give a brief synopsis of what it is, how it works, and kind of the steps going forward. So in incentive zoning, a developer approaches us, somebody with a parcel approaches the town of Canandaigua and asks for special zoning considerations in exchange for amenities that will be provided to the town and its residents. So it's a request for a change in exchange for amenities to be provided by that developer to the town for the benefit of the residents. Prior to tonight's presentation, Peter and representatives from German Brothers met with individual board members in March individually to kind of lay out the scope of the project, to just kind of a feeling out, I kind of like a listening session just to see where people are. Meetings happen again in August with individual board members and representatives from German Brothers. And I just I've received a lot of questions from residents. There's been no discussion by the board in its entirety at this point. There has been no decision by the board on any aspect of this prior to tonight. So as this presentation goes forward, you're hearing it, and this is the first time that we will all hear this together as a board. So this is the first time the five of us are sitting in the same room, hearing this project and hearing the presentation. So no decisions will be made tonight about the project or any sort of future, and this is the model for future incentive zoning requests as well. So the next steps tonight, there's a presentation. There will be town board discussion. There will be questions. And I know there are probably people online with questions and thoughts. There will be a public hearing next month, and that will be the time for questions pertaining to this project. So it kind of gives a month to hear it, to digest. Peter and German Brothers representatives will be back next month for the public hearing for time for questions for anything pertaining to that. So I would ask during privilege of the floor that that save comments for if there are questions about this, to save them for the public hearing next month. So in September, like I said, there will be the public hearing. That will be the chance for comment. In between times, you can always email board members, raise questions, ask comments along the way. Now, subsequent town board meetings, from this point on, every discussion around a project or any sort of incentive zoning project after the presentation is made, discussions are now, any discussion as the town board will be made in public and will be in a group setting like this. It will be done during priority business at the beginning of the meeting. And that's kind of where we talk things out, figure out where we are, try to come to a consensus. And that's kind of the negotiation piece between the board and the developer, to where we can get a point where, okay, we're willing to grant incentive zoning and the developer is willing to provide X amenities to the town. We come to agreement, then we move forward with that process. That could take several board meetings. There's no timetable on this. There's no set number of meetings that we need to have. Then, after all that's done, then the project goes to the planning board. And the planning board goes through those stages and steps in public discussion about the project as well. Okay, so I hope that was clear. It's kind of the layout of the project. Mr. Nadler, anything that I missed?
Mr. Supervisor, is at the risk of making your head grow, I was just thinking to myself, what a good summary of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I think that was very well said.
Yeah.
Well, that was a compliment.
No, we're cutting.
I hear however.
My fourth grade reading teacher would be proud.
Yeah. She's next.
You would be proud.
Board is doing this for the first time in quite some time, as is staff, as is quite frankly myself. I think we're following the procedure so far. And I think now is the time to hear from the applicant and get feedback, and provide feedback in a public setting. And obviously you'll be setting a public hearing.
Yep.
If you accept the application. And, yeah, I think it's, you're all set.
Okay, go ahead.
Just a quick question. What sort of press will there be? Will this be publicized in the local?
So once this goes forward, I assume, and I'll let the presentation play out, but there will be more coming forward. There will be town publications, publications to the north, the public hearing will be advertised, the public hearing will be put out there. But as far as Facebook, social media and things like that too, because we know that unfortunately that's where most people get their news and updates more than the newspapers anymore. So that will be out there to make people aware of the next public hearings and the next steps along the way for that presentation.
Doug is also today set up.
Yes, thank you. So there is on the town website also information. So there are links to every step. So the presentation will be on there. Any documents, any discussion, any letters from residents, that will be gathered, summarized. So it'll be a one-stop shop to look for that key information. Okay.
Interestingly enough, Mr. Supervisor, the resolution, the proposed resolution also indicates that it will be distributed. The town clerk shall provide a copy to the Watershed Council and the Watershed Association.
Yes. So you'll be seeing it. It'll be coming here. Keep your eyes out. All right. So with that, I will turn the time over to our presentation from German Brothers.
This is new to you guys. This is really new
Yeah.
to me. So,
well, we'll learn together.
Yes.
You can move the mic up from the.
Way up. Thank you. So my name is Peter Brew, co-owner of German Brothers Marina. It's BRUU, by the way. There's a little typo in there. I wanted to start off by acknowledging Rick and Peter German. I do know that they are present virtually. Rick and Peter, longtime members of the community, longtime business owners. They owned the marina before I did for 44 years. And in my travels now in the marine industry, they are really well regarded for doing things the right way. And I think that in the community as well, they did things the right way. And it's been 2.5 years now for me to try to keep up that excellent reputation that they have. So that's been a little challenging for me. So this is my 3rd summer owning the marina. And I can tell you when I purchased the marina, all this was not in the cards. I don't want you to think that this was kind of something that I had previously dreamt up before the purchase came along. I did intentionally spend some time at the marina, looking at how it operated, the benefits that it provides currently, what it could provide to the community. And this plan started to come together. And then incentive zoning came along and started to make it a little bit more of a reality, a possibility anyway. Tonight, I'm going to show you in this presentation how hopefully together the town and the marina can, together we can develop a mutually beneficial product outcome. Then I'll discuss the amenities that the town provides. I'll discuss some of the things that the marina will plan to do with the incentive zoning, and then benefits to the general community from the overall plan. So next slide, please. So just a quick orientation. Obviously, it's the lake. This is north, that is south. This is an overlay onto the existing property. The marina does now own, there's a house that's underneath here. And then this is another pre-existing home that the marina recently purchased. It's a.
We'll grab the mic.
So at the south end, that's a single-family residence that the marina just purchased. I think anyone who's driven down County Route 16 can testify that it can be challenging at times. And it's our goal, the marina and the town, to try to make that a little bit easier, a little bit safer for everybody as they head down County Route 16. We're hoping to get safe ingress and egress. We have a single point of entry for parking. And one of my favorite parts of this whole evolution is the lakeside. There'll be an active shoulder. So today that is often blocked by cars and boats and trailers and trucks. We're hoping that it can be painted off into like if you go and you see a bike lane or an active shoulder lane, so that people can enjoy that stretch. And I think that would be kind of one of a kind on County Road 16. There is no dedicated activity lane there, so that would be beautiful. Next slide, please. So the second benefit that the town would receive is there'd be public access to the lake for individuals, and then also for individuals who would like to launch small non-motorized watercraft. There are two options for where that might be. They're both at the north end. And the intention here is, again, not for a, when we say access, it's not a boat ramp. It's the community can interact with the lake. They can sit on the shore. They can have a cup of coffee, watch the sunrise, have an ice cream cone. They can launch a kayak or a canoe or a stand-up paddleboard. And that will also be part of the Canandaigua Water Trail. Is everybody familiar with the water trail? That was new to me. I thought that's awesome. So I'm really excited to be kind of a part of that. That was neat. Never heard of that even before this came along. And then there, today, as you may know, we have lots of boats up here. The boats go into slips that would be in the water here. That design for the slips is to be determined, but some of those slips would be set aside for the public's access. So they'd be able to pull up and access whatever services they'd like to at the marina. Next slide, please. Parking. When I first went to the marina 3 years ago, that was the very first thing that I took notes, and that's it, parking. And so I knew parking would be an issue, and I think we've significantly addressed parking with this proposal. You can see that we have, so this would be the public access on the north here to the lake. This would be dedicated public parking, and there would be ADA parking in here as well. That's 10 spots in here. There's 100 parking spaces here in the yellow, which I don't know how many there are today because it's on the street, but that's a massive improvement in the quantity of parking. So we're excited about that. And there are 5 accessible, ADA accessible parking spots throughout the facility. Next slide, please. So it's continuing on with the amenities for the town. There would be public restrooms that are available 24/7. There are some restrooms today, and it's very interesting to see how many people use those restrooms that aren't members of, or aren't customers. There are people that are riding the lake on their bike, they stop. The FedEx drivers, I think it's a known little spot for people to stop. There'll be accessible parking spaces. There'll be accessible crosswalks across County Route 16 so that people can easily access, and then all the facilities down here will be ADA accessible as well. There'll be opportunities in this area here. There'll be opportunities for picnicking, picnic tables, and then also down in one of these proposed public access space, there'll be opportunity for picnic tables and just general relaxation. It's kind of hard to see, but there are some trails on the plan. There is in this development up here, there is a kind of a trail connector that would connect to. So that would be nice for the community to be able to walk through and access some of the other trails that are in the community that are pre-existing. I'm trying to do this in the most collaborative way possible. I reached out to the DEC to see, I'm sorry, not DEC, Fisheries Department, to see if there were some things that I could do with fisheries. Because I was thinking, the marina for 6 months out of the year is largely dormant. Is there something that fisheries could benefit by using the marina during the winter time? Fortunately, they needed something year round. I'm also reaching out to Cheshire Fire Department to see if they can benefit from some of the slips that we're adding. So hopefully, I know they're in the process of acquiring a fireboat. I don't know if they've acquired it, but I'd love to be able to work with them. Next slide, please. So what, in this give take, what is German Brothers asking for in exchange for some of those things? We'd like to have the 8 lodging units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'll say 7. This last one here is more of a gathering lodge, if you will. There wouldn't be necessarily overnight accommodations in there, that would be more of a gathering space. We're asking for this to be divided up into 3 separate lots. And that is the reason we're asking for that is because the universal dock and mooring law. If we do this in 3 250 feet lake frontage slots, it affects the number of docks that we can get. So we're asking for that to be divided up into 3 separate lots. That's one of our requests. The approved uses today, the marina has the pre-existing non-conforming exemption that limits the uses for the property. So we're asking for that to be expanded to commercial uses such as community recreation, marina, retail, food and beverage, and lodging rental. And UDML, I don't know if everybody here is familiar with that, but we're asking for the town to designate us as a tier 2 facility. That would determine the number of docks that we could possibly install. Doug, I made a quick note when I heard your presentation. My marina and probably most of the others, we have very little, it's not a public ramp. So there's very little in and out. Most of the boats at my marina go in and stay in. So there's not a tremendous risk anyway. There are some that take it out and they go to Lake George for the week, but that's pretty rare overall. Most of the boats go in and stay in. So just at my place anyway. But we do have all the signage up that talks about cleaning the boats if it does go outside the lake. Next slide, please. So benefits to the community. Again, I went through some of the things the town gets, some of the things the marina gets, some of the things that the town, the general community will get. I personally think it'll be a lot more attractive than what's there today. If you drive down Westlake Road, I love boats, obviously, but what's here is going to be a lot more attractive than seeing lots of boats on trailers. I also think they'll have obviously elegant lodging. It'll be family oriented. There will be food and beverage in this current location here. That's currently our service building. That will be moved off-site to where the YMCA, across the street from the YMCA now. So that a little benefit from that is that takes some of the oily bits that we use, takes that away from the lakefront So I do think that would be beneficial to the lake. And I was lost my train of thought there. Oh, so I was mentioning the visual benefits. It's just going to be more attractive overall. And I do think there are environmental benefits too, to moving some of those facilities off site, and improved parking, safety down the general County Route 16 corridor. Sustainability. It's been a primary thought as we go through the various designs. It's kind of hard to see what it looks like today for impervious surfaces, but it looks like a lot of impervious, but there is a lot of impervious today. So what is here is pretty much pre-existing as far as impervious. Today, there's a big road that goes up here, and that's replaced, but this kind of gets added. All of the lodging units are on some of the existing green space that's there. We're hoping to try to use some innovative materials so that we can improve the permeability. There will be stormwater management with underground tanks. I'm quickly learning how that all works. I think that's very interesting. So that is something that's obviously will be considered and designed into the project. One more slide. One more. So just in kind of a conclusion, I've had some time to share a lot of this with community members, voters, non-voters, and maybe I'm talking to a biased audience, but the reception has been phenomenal. Everybody has been saying to me, finally, can't wait. We need this. So it's been rewarding to hear that, I guess. It's been exclusively enthusiastic. So hopefully the board agrees that this is something that is beneficial, again, to everybody that's involved, all the stakeholders, the general residents, the town, the lake itself. I do think the lake, the water quality will benefit too from taking some of this load off the nearby water lakefront. And again, hopefully the town agrees that this is a good thing. And we'll go through this process together. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Yeah. I think we probably all have a lot of them. We didn't bring sleeping bags either. There'll be plenty of time because this process will take time. A lot of very positive elements. Certainly the look is much different than what we see, today down there, which is, can be kind of hectic. One comment I wanted to make is, you alluded to it, was that a lot of the storage service trailers are going to be over on County Road 30. I, for one, would like to see a more complete plan presented that shows what that's going to be, and, also talks about, I know we talked with Greg the other day about transporting boats back and forth, because there's going to be the ability for people to keep a boat at your facility over on County Road 30, call up, ask for the boat to be put in the water the next day or next week or something, and transport back and forth. How all that's going to work and how that might impact any traffic, anything in, going through going through the city. And, just kind of a broader picture. I mean, this is the glamorous part right here. The other part not too glamorous, I doubt, so, but that would be interesting to see, I think. And
can I answer some of that for you real quick?
Well, I don't know if you.
So actually, there are two little bits in there that I didn't bring up that are significant. Is on the North Road property, it's my intention to have a test tank, if you will, so that right now all the boats that we store in the winter, they all go into the lake for water testing. The North Road facility will have a filtered tank for all the boats that get tested before they get in the water. So the amount of boats, and there are hundreds of boats that we store that go down this road and down that ramp, will, all of that load moves to North Road. So that all that activity doesn't even come this direction. So that's in itself. So they'll go from storage into that service facility on North Road and then to the customer.
But there will be transport back and forth.
So the
For
second,
people that want to, that aren't leasing or renting a slip or more.
right, so that's what we call a dry storage customer. And it's my estimation that that's going to be significantly reduced number of people. Almost everybody wants a slip and they just can't get a slip today because they're not available. All the marinas have waiting lists for slips. So today we have up here almost 70 boats, and well, they've all asked about this plan and they all say, I can't wait to get into a slip. So the people that are what we could call dry store customers that would be stored off-site, in my estimation is going to be very small. So hypothetically, it's 30 people. And I've been tracking the number of boats that go in and out of the marina of late. About a third of those on any given day are in the water. So it would be in the neighborhood of 10 boats that would be transported. And I don't think they'd be coming all the way from North Road. I'd be trying to find a location that's significantly closer than North Road. So it would be a small number of boats that would be moving and hopefully in a shorter distance.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Okay.
Greg did point out about your test tank and all that one. At least when I was talking with him last week. But I think that needs to be part of your presentation, is my point.
Okay.
The whole thing, not just the glamorous part.
Okay.
Here.
Yep.
If you could do that in the timeline, we talked about that, this isn't all going to happen next summer.
No, sir.
It's going to take years to give people some feeling of what construction sequence would be, or what, are there going to be tie-ups in traffic, whatever. Some kind of presentation of that timeline.
Terry, we're also gonna be producing a chart, a chart, what you want to call it, for this 5-year schedule.
Yeah.
Right, that sequencing is very important to your point, right? We recognize that already.
Yeah.
So we'll have that to you next 30 days. I believe we will have that for you for a public hearing.
Now, a couple of other things. I'm curious also, you did allude to a trail going up the upper part of the property, RSM property. Maybe developed, maybe that, who knows? I mean, the books for
It's not under our control.
decades, I think so. Only two. But have you been in any discussion with them about drainage and what's coming down off the hill? How that going to impact your operation, how all of that fits together? Something I think needs to be addressed. I only got one more thing and I'll shut up. And that is the incentive and the amenities. You're providing a list of amenities that the town should accept. I was involved in the Village Project, which had its people that endorsed it and people that weren't terribly in favor of it. But the town.
You said the Village
negotiated
Project?
that.
Villas.
The village,
It's the last time we
Some
did it.
townhomes.
it's next to bypass or no Cheshire Road. But we negotiated with the developer and said, these are some things that we need as a town. And we didn't get everything we wanted. They didn't get everything they wanted. But we did it that way. We weren't handed a list of, here's what the amenities will be. Can't be that. I'm only one person on the board, but you read through our incentive zoning code. We will propose what amenities the town needs. Maybe those, maybe other things. Just want to point that out. That where I came from when we did it the first time. It was quite a while ago, so.
I have been this whole time operating under the assumption that those were the amenities that the town wanted. It was not my intention to,
Do you have something
State
from
that
the
you
town
wanted.
that said this is what we want?
that's fair.
No, you don't.
That is fair, yes. And so I did say it was an assumption. So it wasn't my intention to state these are what you want and these are what you need. So my apologies.
Lake access is always welcome.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a couple things if I can bring it up. First, thank you for investing in the town and trying to make this an even better location.
Really impressive
Um,
presentation.
As I told you in the beginning, my number one is protecting the lake, and I hope that you're going to be able to improve the drainage in this location, particularly with the potential future building that's coming up in the future. And I know that's important to you to protect the project
Sure.
as well. To that end, I also have a couple of other little questions, and you also did not bring up your potential restaurant as a possibility too. We talked about adding a restaurant in some way on the lake shore as well, so.
I did briefly talk about it here. I guess I didn't go into great detail, not for any reason. So the service building is there today, and that when that goes away, yes, that would be a restaurant.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that you got that out there, because I know that's something people are interested in as well.
Very interested.
Yeah, so I had a couple questions, and you don't have to answer tonight, but I'd like it for our public hearing. I'd really like to know exactly how many boat slips you're proposing adding in those three different lots.
May I add to that, please? On
Can
that
I,
same,
can I just finish them?
yep, go ahead.
So exactly how many boat slips and how many you currently have boat slips and moorings, so that we just so we can get a feel for the visual impact as well as the lake impact from that as well. If you can also determine, for comparison purposes, what other marinas on the lake have for boat slips. I know for me, it would be helpful to know how many boat slips are at, whatever it's called, Covenant Point.
Canandaigua Boat Works.
But just to know and get a visual for an understanding of the impact that would be having. It also might be helpful if you had any kind of a reference for how far into the lake your moorings go as well. So I think you have a little bit of this attachment, but that would be helpful for the public to see how far the moorings go right now and how far the docks would go in the future.
So on that particular thing, we're actually going to be
I think you are, so
in from the current footprint.
that I think that would be helpful for
Yep.
everybody to have a visual on that as well.
And the number, to address the number of docks, the UDML
Next,
tells me
yeah.
what you can do. It would be my intention to, based on market demand,
Yep.
see how many people want to buy.
Yeah.
So,
But I think she'd like to see the maximum number allowed.
so UDML is pretty clear as to what is allowed.
If you could just print that out on the map.
Sure.
so
I just would like
the
that to be
Board members don't have to count.
clear, yeah. And then, finally, my largest concern in when I read the attachment we have here with our town board memo, or town board MIP agenda, is the description of, public boat slips, public parking, trail connector, and the public lake access with the launching point. They're all listed as a 30-year license, which to me is not really an amenity that's provided in town. I know there's some concerns on your lake frontage and how long that has to be in order for the UDML to work. But I have a lot of concerns about things that last for 30 years. I hope to be here in 30 years, and I would not want to have a 30-year agreement. I would be more interested in either a permanent easement or some sort of permanent ownership of at least the part that connects to the lake to get out onto that dock, and the upper parking area as well. Just because, we've had things like Bristol Harbor in the past, or even Madeira, that felt like there were public lake access opportunities, and they weren't. They're private organizations, and we want you to be able to do whatever makes you a profit in that land. But at the same time, I don't want to create a temporary public amenity. So that's fine. You want.
I said I was done, but I just want to throw in one comment. That is that granting the incentive, if we approve this incentive zoning change, it's good forever, not 30 years. It runs forever. So whatever the amenities, in my opinion, the amenities run forever.
If your concern is financing related, I'm happy to work with your attorneys to structure the permanence while also allowing you to get financing.
The greater question is the UDML is all driven by frontage. And if I don't own the frontage, I can't get the docks. So if I turn over ownership of frontage, the whole thing falls apart.
Maybe you don't have to turn over ownership. Maybe there's another way. That's why we have a turn.
Ready for me?
Well, let me
I
just
think
say,
you need 30
I think
seconds.
we could work something out that is, I don't think the town board, or at least two members, are interested in a 30-year lease. But I think we could work something out that didn't impact your UDML entitlements. While still giving the town the permanence it wants and probably is entitled to, since the amenities are permanent in nature as well. Well, we can work something out.
Or said differently, we need something in place to protect our interests in case 30 years from now, everything changes, ownership changes, people move on, whatever the case may be. We need something in place to protect our long-term interests in the public spaces. But you want to do before I
Go ahead. No, I've already talked a lot tonight.
Yep.
So I'll just fill in.
I'm not expecting you to address these comments tonight, but I do think that you ought to take them into consideration for your future plan. I did hear you say that there could be boats going from our lake to other lakes and then back into our lake. That raises a concern. I don't know if it takes one boat to have these tabs on them, or whether it takes 10 boats to have these tabs on them. But I think that's a concern. And I think that if you can do something to address that, that would be helpful. To Terry's point, I don't know if you got it, relative to the traffic on Westlake. Currently, besides your storage, moving your boats in and out of storage off-site, all of your dry storage, the ones that are going to be moving from the hill into the water, is just across the street. Now what I'm hearing you say is you're going to have dry storage off-site, and you'll be transporting those boats down Westlake Road and back and forth. And it could be frequent, it could be every weekend, it could be multiple times. I'd like to know how many dry dock storage slips you're gonna have, and how many of those boats could be traveling up and down Westlake Road. To reiterate what I think some of the other, my colleagues on the board have said, if you are going to be dedicating public space for the public's use, I'd like to see some type of long-term commitment that will extend beyond 30 years and extend to the community. I do like your plan. I do think it enhances the safety of Westlake Road. I think it beautifies Westlake Road by not having the boats up on the hill. And that certainly makes the lakefront more appealing. One thing I think you need to have and come to us with, and I think Adeline referred to it, but I call it a phasing and logistics plan. And I'd like to see all of your slips that you anticipate to construct. I'd like to see you have all of your moorings that you intend to have in the water. I'd like to see traffic patterns for the boats that are going to continue to use your facilities for gasoline or in-water maintenance or any of those types of conditions. Right now, there is an established boat pattern that has been used for in excess of 4 decades, as you mentioned earlier in your presentation. And I think that has become the norm. And you're changing the norm now. And I think we need to be very clear in terms of how that is going to, the boats are going to move in and out of your facility. And I think in conjunction with that, as Terry had mentioned earlier, there needs to be a phase. We need to understand what the first phase is going to be. If that is successful and works to your benefit, I'd like to see what the second phase is going to be, and then the third phase, or however many phases you're going to have throughout this 5-year period. If you're going to have a restaurant, I'd like to know whether it will be serving adult beverage and to what extent that adult beverage is going to be. Is it going to be a full bar, or is it just going to be a wine and beer bar? And I think the community probably wants to hear that also, and may come forward with some comments about that. This one is just for your consideration. I know that some of the other marinas on the lake might do this, so you might want to consider it, but they do have accessible boating. Something you might want to consider offered. I think I saw 4 to 8 public slips on your presentation. If you're gonna make this a destination for the community, and you're gonna want people coming in and out to go to your ice cream stand or your restaurants, I'm not sure 4 to 8 boat slips is adequate for the community to come to your place.
That number doesn't, there are additional slips that are transient for the restaurant.
And that would be helpful to see that on your phasing the logistics plan so that the community and us fully understand that.
Why did you separate the public and the transient?
That's what I thought you wanted.
I think, public or transient in my mind, and I'm sure it probably is in many of our other board members' minds, it's all the same thing, right? People coming to visit your restaurant, to me, transient, public are the same. I mentioned moorings. Another comment I'm going to make, just because it could be environmentally friendly if you're on the water, there's going to be a lot of pavement. Maybe you could use a permeable paver of some type, or permeable pavement of some type. And the last comment I have, and I hope I haven't taken too much time and bored everybody to death. I'm not sure that project, as depicted on that picture, represents your lot lines or not. And I would like to see that on the drawing. So in other words, is the green space I see to the west of that parking lot, all the green space you had for the lot lines or not? Am I making sense?
That's lot lines.
That is lot line, what I'm looking at right there? Okay. That's kind of my comments. And then again, you want the 3 parcels. I'd like to see what the parcels are that you want to divide it into. And I hope I haven't overwhelmed you with this, some of the ideas and thoughts that I've had.
I'd just like to say, thank you for investing in the town. I think this is a wonderful looking plan. Obviously, some of the details have to be worked out. And I think that, I don't speak for the board, but I speak for myself. I think we can work those out. I'm encouraged by it. People that I've talked to since it was put on our agenda have come to me and said they're encouraged about it. I think access to the lake and a place to eat at the lake are 2 huge things that people ask for all summer long. So thank you for thinking of this. And from my standpoint, we'll work through these details.
If you could, Peter and Greg, if a lot of these comments are, to me, it's not a complete plan. If you could show, like what John was just talking about, what Adeline was talking about, some more drawings and depict what this thing is going to look like with the slips that you already envisioned. And people react to visual stuff. And
I don't doubt you what you're saying. But it helps a lot for me, if I can see it, and if you can flesh the plan out more here and over in County Road 30, it's something, that's what it's going to look like when we get to that last phase and complete it. I think that'd be very helpful for us as well as the public. You could see really what's going to happen. The more you can put into that kind of presentation, it's very helpful to people, very helpful to you.
I have actually one more comment.
Go ahead, and then I'll wrap up.
I forgot to mention earlier, and we'll talk about this in the public hearing, but you mentioned the potential for using that facility not as a rental, but potentially a, I guess, meeting place or whatever you define it as. And you're asking for a commercial designation for your facility as well. We need to discuss what level of events you're anticipating happening. Right now, we don't allow events in short-term rentals. These are kind of like the short-term rental, I think, at this point. That would not be, and you're asking to be a commercial operation as opposed to a private operation. So we should address that in the public hearing. So.
In my mind, at the moment, and it's more or less affiliated with the lodging units. So there are going to be kids in here. The kids, maybe it's a play area for kids. Maybe if they're business meetings, I had one of my customers today said he has lots of people come in from out of town. He said that would be awesome if I could put them up here and meet there. So
I just want there to be a definition of that because people are going to come to the public hearing and say, are you going to
Loud
have a wedding
music
here
and
that's
weddings,
going
yes.
on till 1 o'clock in the morning with fireworks, so that's just to have an answer
Yeah.
for that, and we're going to need to specify, what's acceptable with that kind of facility in a commercial environment as opposed to a residential environment, so.
All right, I will turn the time over to Mr. Nadler for a comment, and then I will.
Comments. So I think you're in really good shape here because all of this stuff essentially what Adeline is asking is what you need to provide. You need to identify the uses, not just for the one that we just spoke about, but everything. Essentially identify what you're asking for in more detail. This is a zoning matter. So the town board, before they can make a decision, needs to see what you're proposing, which one of those buildings essentially is gonna be which, and how many and how, and the size. I don't think at this stage of the review, unless Terry adamantly objects based on what you said, Terry, you can need detailed architectural elevations or really to invest any more engineering or site plan expense. I think you could pencil it in, but the town board needs a lot more information. I don't think it's engineering information. I think it's the town board needs to have an operations plan, what exactly you're planning on doing, and how that will be done in each of these areas that you're asking for something. I heard basic plan, before we can agree, or before the town board can rezone, there's gotta be, those amenities are gonna have to be promised in writing and on or before a certain date. And, so we might as well get that estimated timeline down, now, so the town board can make a decision. That might be the preliminary submittal requirements. We need to know the breakdown of the amenity costs. Total 1.6 million. That needs to be assigned per line item. So, break it down per.
I think that's already in our, I think that's in our incentive zoning application already.
Okay. It's just one. Really fully attached to it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Need lot lines laid out?
No, not for this,
Not
not
for this?
sketchily. I mean, yes, you need to know.
We will.
Eventually, you absolutely will, but either way, regardless of what's there or not,
They could just say approximately.
Yeah, the incentive value breakdown and the amenity value breakdown. Because in the end, incentives only is really a cost benefit analysis, so we need more numbers. You know, it's all very clearly excluded site access, safety stuff and things that weren't actually amenities that you have to be provided. I think it's a good solid number that is, the town needs to see more detail on that. Not before they set up public hearing, but by public hearing.
When you say the incentive breakdown, what do you mean by that? The value of?
So the applicant is proposing amenities, public access, parking, public dock spots. Those each should have a value.
Yeah, those are amenities. You said incentive.
Yes. And so-
Incentive is building amenities.
So the town code says that should describe the requested incentive and its value and the value of the proposed amenity.
So
That's great if it's the proposed amenity.
So you're saying value of that,
Yeah.
value of the incentive.
Yeah,
The incentive is
if
going
there's
to
a
be that.
density, which is why I was going to recommend, and I don't know that this is required by our code, but if it's useful, describe what's allowed right now. I don't know if anything, but if you're allowed to build one structure, you know, put a value on that. Put a value on the 8 structures, and there you have it. It's a cost benefit analysis that the town board is going to have to make. And at this stage, they have to make an initial determination that, you know, the values.
When we did the villas, it was fairly easy because each dwelling place had worth quarter, this one, worth quarter of $1 million. There's 5, so there's 4. So each one was $1 million. You're going to build 30 of those, so $30 million, roughly, plus infrastructure and all that. Maybe it's $40 million. Okay, there's the value of the incentive. This is a little tougher to do, I would think.
Yeah, I think it, well, then that's why I'm suggesting, and I think the town board will eventually have to insist that it really be broken out because it is tough. And the other side of that equation with the villas, most of the incentives were infrastructure related, right? Which you could put a linear cost per foot up.
The whole thing there after was done.
You can put a cost.
Oh, they just, on the others, Either
This
way.
is increased density as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so put a value on that. There's formulas, people in the real estate industry, I'm sure can pop, on the finance end can pop those calculations together for the town board. They can go from there.
So there's no real, did you just have a quick question?
It's to the town board or, Don. They're proposing the UDML tier 2. Could somebody
Yeah,
explain?
I'm headed to that. What it means?
Yeah, and how many
Yeah.
votes or slips.
Yep.
So
Yep, you read,
that we understand that.
yep, you read my mind.
Okay.
So I know that's scary, isn't it? It's a place where you want to visit, but trust me, you don't want to live here. So a couple questions, and I'll hit on what Oksana mentioned first. The reason why, and correct me, my understanding is the reason why you're asking for 250-foot lots, 3 of them, is that maximizes the boats in the water. By UDML, that allows 50 slips and 15 moorings per 250 feet. So the maximum potential request with a phase 2 would be 150 boat slips. Tier 2, 150 boat slips and 45 moorings.
And that's New York State law.
That's New York State law. That's the maximum. We cannot exceed that.
New York State, it's UDML.
Well, that's UDML. That's law. That's
Universal.
we have to follow that. So 150, 45. The maximum that can be requested between boat slips, between the docks and the moorings is 195. So that would be the maximum. That would be asking for everything out there. So that's why that's the 250 feet. Now, part of the negotiation is, well, we're not comfortable. I'm just hypothetically speaking right now, is we might not be comfortable with this number. We would be comfortable with this number. And that's part of the negotiation. We can grant, we can't go under we can't go over, but we can make an agreement to stay under what the UDML says. Okay? So what I need to know coming through, because I've sat through, I feel like I know this project pretty darn well, because I've sat through 10 of these, I've sat through 10 presentations, because with each town board member presenting plus my own individual one, I sat through them. So details kind of change at times, and I know that's a natural progression, but I really am reiterating what was said. I need to see the details and the hard numbers. I think we're to that point where we kind of talked, during the presentations, it was kind of a feeling out process, seeing where people were. Now we need to see hard numbers, and we need to see, okay, this is the minimum number for you guys, the minimum number of slips and moorings that we would want, for example. I'm just speaking out loud, so we know, okay, this is what that number is. I also, again, need to know, and it's not going to change your whole plan, but I think we're at the point now where we need to know, okay, these houses, these buildings, the units, they're going to have X number of rooms. That's the plan. So that would be a rezoning. So they're going to be this number. They will have this number of rooms. Square footage, the number of square footage and the number of rooms. So we need real details. It doesn't need to be, like Chris said, it doesn't need to be the whole elevations and everything else. It just needs to be, this is how big, this is the number of rooms, and this is what we would be requesting. I also, because we are asking for a value incentive in return, and some of that has been presented to us. I would also, going with what our attorney said, I need to know what the projection would be for, okay, we're putting in 6 of these. This is our investment. This is our potential income. This is the incentive. If we had 1, it would be this type of business or this type of benefit to the business profit wise. Now, if we can have 5 more of them, it would be this type of benefit, because you're gaining that, the incentive zoning, you're gaining the extra business growth. So there's a greater bottom line there. There's a greater growth and income potential. So by us allowing that, you grow. So I need to kind of see that number. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I allowed? And we're okay asking for that. Correct?
Absolutely, you're actually required, it's required by the incentive zoning section that those numbers.
So I need to see the hard numbers, and again, and I don't want to repeat too much, the total number of boats in the water now versus potential boats that would be coming in and being there. And also lastly, you had mentioned the access, I think we all agree from what I'm hearing, so we need a longer term permanent access amenity given to the town of Canandaigua. You mentioned the bathrooms and other things in your presentation. You said it would be 24/7 access. I would hope that the public would have access, if not 24/7, as long as you're open during hours of operation, the public would have access. During hours of operation, the public would have access to any of the publicly provided amenities. Because it would be not a restricted time frame, not a restricted time period. Like some, certain hours it's not, it would be used for other things. It's gotta be all for public access during hours of operation. So
You want that open at night?
Well, hours of operation. What I'm getting at is, yeah, the sign would be, closed at dark. But what I would want to see is
Be repurposed.
right, like repurposed between 6 and 9 PM for events as part of the restaurant or the marina, that type of thing. And so,
Yes.
so people would have full access. Anybody from the public, whether it's hours of operation or whatever. It might be. So I think we're to the point where now it's time, and I'm comfortable. I think we're in a good time for the public hearing. Tighten the presentation with more details coming back, because I know that's what the public is going to want to know. They're gonna wanna know how much, what's the net increase in boats on the water? How many are there now? How many are there gonna be? What's it gonna do to my view? What's the impact gonna be? What's the impact gonna be on the watershed? How many people are gonna be there and attending? How many, you know, what's the specific use? So now it's time to get into the specific details and put it all out there. Put it all out on the table and then negotiate through that.
I have a question for you guys on timing, just kind of phasing. The first domino for me would be putting the docks in, because I'm gonna need to have a place to put the boats. And those docks can only go in the winter. Or actually, I should say late spring. So my timing could vary drastically. Like if you said yes today, I could put them in over the winter and they'd be in the spring. But if you told me yes, January 1st, they're probably not going to go in for another 18 months or 14-ish months. So it's going to be hard for me to give you tight dates on the phasing with that variable at the beginning. Does that make sense?
Then say that, and they don't need tight dates, they need.
We need phase one with timeframe,
So-
phase
Phase
one.
approval.
Phase one is the docks go in. They would have to go in during this time period. So the whole process is based on that initial domino falling. So if we decide, you know, let's say it's not until, and I don't know how long this is, I don't know how long, you know, through the process, it could take a month, 2 months, 3 months, I don't know, as we work through the process of where we are. If it is within the window, then it can say, okay, we start, but if it's outside of the window, that phase one understandably would be kicked back until the next possible time to put those in, and then the rest would fall into place after that.
Makes sense.
Because we're not trying, you know, and by discussion, we're not trying to hold things up. Because I think from hearing from everybody, the project is needed and some sort of improvement in that area. But we also need to make sure that we're all on the same page and we are doing what's best for residents who want to come and enjoy that and guests, but also residents who live here and are here all the time. We want to make sure that everybody's protected.
Okay, I understand this is a new project for incentive zoning in the ROVs. But let us not forget, next door, what is going to be happening, RSM. So, which is another huge project. And, you know, for the residents that are living near on either side of the marina and RSM, this is going to be chaos.
So those are all things that we can think of the future. I don't know if we can pair the two together. I mean, we do need to think of the big picture and the potential impact, and that's kind of part of our deliberation or our discussion.
And at that point, all valid points for the public hearing.
Right.
At this point,
I think
the
we're
only
good.
thing to be done tonight is give a little feedback.
Yep.
Set up public hearing.
Yep, so I would say, and definitely encourage people to come and share their thoughts, share those thoughts in public hearing. It's important for people to be heard. And get those thoughts and get them on record. And that all of it will be heard. So at this point, so we can keep moving on. I'm going to, if anybody else, we all good?
Can I make just a response to that? Obviously, it's a seasonal business and the work almost certainly has to be done during the dormant time. So when West Lake Road is not quite as busy, wintertime is when we'll probably have more of this type of activity. So when it's busy, we can't do the work. So I don't think it will be, given that the activity on the road is down during the winter, it shouldn't be absolute chaos, maybe just a little bit of chaos.
I'm also thinking about the steep slopes and both developments.
So we'll get into that more. I mean, we could, as we know, we could keep talking on this a lot. And we will, and we'll have that opportunity. We'll have that when we set the public hearing.
Public hearing may not be started and concluded.
Correct.
September.
It could, the
We'll
public
open,
hearing
but
could
it
be
may go for
extended.
months.
We will have a limit on the amount of time per evening. We won't go for 4 hours, but it can be extended. It closes when we announce that it's closed. So that public hearing period can extend for a period of time.
I would also really encourage people to email the town board regarding this and their thoughts, whether or not they can be here for public hearing.
Yes.
I'd love to be able to read what people's thoughts and concerns and positives are before we get to that.
Right. Okay, thank you. So, thank you very much, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. Sam. All right.
I'm Oksana Fuller.
I guess 2 hours is all some people can take.
Yeah.
I know.
Let's
No,
go. Let's bang this out.
Stay. I'm holding out to Terry so it doesn't go with everybody else.
Well, now that we're doing priority business.
I know. So that, speaking of public hearings, we have one public hearing on the agenda to override the tax cap limit. Before I open that, I do want to make another statement regarding the tax cap. People are questioning quite a bit why we need this and what's going on with the tax rate and the tax cap, et cetera. The tax cap isn't based on the tax levy. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The tax cap is not based on the tax rate. It is based on the tax levy. So for example, last year's town tax rate was $1.06 per thousand. This year with the reassessment, it'll be in the upper 70 cents per thousand range. That is the new tax rate. Why do we pass a resolution to set a local law to override it? Because if we don't pass that local law, and then we have to override the tax cap, we get in a lot of trouble by New York State because they want us to do things that they don't necessarily do all the time, and they want us to. They could fine us. The comptroller we'd be in a lot of trouble with the comptroller's office. Let me put it that way. If we pass a resolution and don't override the tax cap and don't exceed the tax cap, then we just pass that local law. Then we just rescind that local law. So that's why we do it, to protect us, to give us that option, that opportunity to do that. Now, that said, the budget for this upcoming year probably will not be tax cap compliant, even with a lower tax rate. And that's because of the increase in fire and the increase in water rates. All of those things, all the special districts, your sewer districts, your water districts, your drainage districts, all of those go into the tax levy. And those have an impact on the tax cap. So fire prevention went up quite a bit. Water costs are going up quite a bit. Those are all playing in part of why the tax cap won't be, why the budget won't be tax cap compliant. Even though the tax levy doesn't have, it has, the tax rate goes down, the tax levy is just outside of that. Now it's different than schools. Schools have to vote on it, on that rate. For example, with Canandaigua, I know their tax rate this year, they're proposing about $15.02 per thousand. Last year was $19.86. This year it's going to be about $15.02. If they didn't, they wouldn't be tax cap compliant. They pull the whole thing up. Okay, so that's why we do this. So again, since I do sometimes talk too much, I will stop talking. And at this time, I will declare the public hearing open pertaining to overriding the tax cap, the tax levy limit pertaining to resolution 2023-197. Would anybody like to be heard at this time? Karen.
So you're saying that you're likely to go over the tax cap this year.
Yes.
And if you didn't pass this local law and you went over the tax cap, I hear you that you could be fined, or you have the opportunity to go back and relook at the budget and try to make changes to comply with the tax cap, or is that an impossible thing?
Well, considering a lot of those expenses are fixed and contracted expenses, you know, we always look at the budget. The budget isn't set and it always gets tweaked. But a lot of those agreements or contracts we've signed, we have a contract with Cheshire and the city of Canandaigua for fire protection. those have built-in escalators to meet their increasing costs. Everything's more expensive, from labor to equipment to regulations to everything. So those are built in, and then water rates, the infrastructure, the costs, the work, all of that rolls into that. And those things are getting more expensive. The capital costs for the water are going up quite a bit.
So why wouldn't you, or is it possible for us to see the draft budget first before you try to pass this?
The draft budget will come out in September. We have to have the local law for sequencing. We do it now. We have to do it now. It's always been done in August.
I know, I've been coming.
Yeah,
to this
you've
for a
been,
long
I know.
time, and I know that, but just because we've always done it, doesn't mean we still have to continue
Correct.
to do it. And you have residents whose assessments went, and I'm sure they complain.
Right.
So I don't understand. I mean, what is the cutoff date for overriding the tech?
Our budget, we adopt our budget in October. Our budget, when is the exact date our budget has to be filed?
Officially has to be adopted by the traditionally we adopted it in October. Because the November meeting usually after.
Yeah.
So why couldn't you, and the draft budget usually comes out in September, right?
By Labor Day.
So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you have, put this local law or have this meeting or whatever you want to do in September, the September meeting?
Probably because we already know what the numbers are.
Yeah,
And we're enacting
I understand,
Yeah.
you know, but you know the details. We don't know the details. We don't know the budget. We don't know where, you know, we don't know if we're spending $500,000 to put siding on Jared's house on.
No, you're not, because it's not even done yet. You've told me that multiple times.
My point is, we don't know the details of why
Right.
you're overriding the tax cap. So the residents are operating blind. You're probably not operating as blind.
Some of us board members don't have that information.
Yeah. So we know that the tentative, what's that?
So that's not entirely true. We have looked at numbers already. We have gone through. I have asked for numbers. I have not yet seen any. Just
I think the main issue, I mean, I've been to several of the budget meetings. I think the main issue is that it's related to the special districts, right? So there's it's related to the special districts. There's very specific areas where the tax cap's going to be overridden. So it's not related to the overall levy. That we obviously would want to know and have publicized before we did this, but this is very specific to pre-existing contracts with water and sewer costs, and those
Fire.
specific districts. So, and fire, not sewer. So if you don't get water, that particular water district is not going to be affecting you in any way, shape or form. So there will be residents that this wouldn't affect, and there will be residents that this will affect based on whether or not they're located in those specific districts.
So do you have an idea of how many, a percentage of the town residents that will be affected by?
Well, for example, so in a proposed, our proposed number is 78 cents, roughly. Yeah, so we're proposed at 78 cents per thousand, okay? And the average, so if you have the average home, which is what, 340,000, or is it up to 3?
Yeah, let me just show you just
So that-
real quickly.
That represents, with the new revaluation, represents about a $3 change in town taxes last year to this year.
Right. So the average, and I'll just share this, and for those of you on Zoom, and I know, Jared, there's a gentleman that wants to speak from Zoom too. But for the average home in the town of Canandaigua, you're going to pay for the general highway fund. This is the tentative budget. The town board can always change this. That basically by reducing the tax rate to 78 cents, it's flat. And the average home in the town of Canandaigua would pay $3.06 more in 24 than they paid in 23 for the general and highway fund. For the fire,
because of those contracts that have been mentioned, the average home in the town of Canandaigua, which is now assessed at $383,198, would pay $74 more. The tax rate would increase to 86 cents per thousand. So the fire would pay 74. So that's townwide. Every house in the town would be paying additional, basically the average home, $75 per year. Per year. This isn't per month. This is per year. And then water, for those that are in the Canandaigua Consolidated Water District, would pay on average $64.17 per thousand. So the combined of those, and that's the reason why we were trying to keep the tax rate low, so that these differences with that revow could be mitigated. The average home that is fire, which are all, plus Canandaigua Consolidated Water, would pay $141.46 more in 24 than they paid in 23. In terms of the tax cap, folks, we are nowhere close. We are $680,858 over because of the special districts. All of the special districts have to be combined when you're calculating the tax cap. That includes things like the Uptown bid. That includes every single water district, including the Canandaigua Farmington district, where we have to do a $13 million water project. That includes all the drainage districts, all the lighting districts, the fire district, the sewer districts. That includes all of those. So we really have gone through for this tentative budget. And I just want to address the comment John made. John wasn't at the finance committee meeting where the four of you met with me and we went through. That's why you haven't seen these. That was that special finance meeting that we had. But yeah, that's why. But specifically, we've gone through these numbers. The town of Canandaigua, and I apologize, you on Zoom probably can't see this at the moment because I just walked over here to do this quick. But the tax rate, as Jared mentioned, was $1.06 for 2023. The average home in the town of Canandaigua was $282,000 for 2024 because of the final tax roll 7/1/23. The average home in the town of Canandaigua jumped 37%. That's $383,198.11. Calculating that tax rate, that increase for the average home is $3.06. So we really did go through intentionally in fine detail to actually go through and conduct this analysis so that we could mitigate these costs as much as possible.
And I would also point out, I mean, looking at other municipalities that have had similar revaluations, the closest one, I mean, it's right up above us. You have the town of Farmington, who last year, 2022, right, tax rate was $1.02. And this year, the tax rate is $1. So we've done everything we can to lower that tax rate and lower that tax burden. But those things, to the fine tooth comb, it's been done, and any other changes are it's the fire that we've already committed to. We've signed the contracts, and I don't think that we would want to skimp on fire protection. That's what bumped us over the top. It's the water districts. It's everything else that are set, scheduled, calculated costs that are going in there.
When people talk about tax, we generally consider the property tax. We look at that number, but even that $1.06 we're at this year, it's not true. That's the property tax, but the real tax total is around $2.50. But what everybody fixates on is the property tax, and that number is only one component of the total. And this is the first year that fire tax, which it is going to be more than the property tax. That's never happened before. But again, as Sharon said, the numbers, we had 3-year contracts with Cheshire, with the city. The numbers, up through last year, the numbers were, you might say, reasonable compared to where they're going now. The increases were 40-50% above where they had been historically.
So I understand
It's just-
the fire protection. I heard their presentation. Equipment ages, and I understand the need to replace that. The water, I mean, we put in the new tank in Cheshire. Is that part of what is raising the water?
Well, you've got to take into consideration, we have to consider that. We also have to consider the Canandaigua Farmington improvement.
Brickyard Road.
So that kind of all rolls, those costs kind of all roll into the same
Yes,
pile
that was my
for the
question.
calculation, but that doesn't affect your bottom line,
No, I understand.
Yeah,
I
but
understand.
that does go
But
in
that-
there,
that
yes,
does Affect the water.
yes.
So we did make all those improvements, Karen. That's just part of it. We don't control our own destiny with water. We buy it from the city. The city is.
We've had water meetings and the city is asking, you scared it out of me. What's our contribution? I can't read that. Okay, so the city's asking for an extra, basically, $200,000 upfront contribution from the town to go into the capital improvement fund for the water treatment plant. Now, does it need to be improved? Yeah. Does it need to be, does it need to have more quantity? Yes. However, after years of it kind of slipping and not being taken care of at a regular basis, now, because we don't control that, we're behind the 8 ball. And I mean, I'm just glad that's our portion. I'm glad we're not Farmington. Farmington was closer to $500,000 that they were asked to kick into this capital improvement fund on an annual basis to reach that point to help start to cover those costs. Because if you think a water tank's expensive, think about now entire water treatment plant that has all the mechanisms and all of that in it, and how expensive that is going to be to improve. So that's another driver that, take that 200,000 out.
Plus 30% against us for Canada Farmington.
Right, plus the extra 30 that we pay kind of through Farmington, if they're that cost. You take that out, your water rate would go up because they kind of lowered the water rate to say, we're lowering your water rate, but now you got to give us 200,000. Your water rate would go up, doesn't affect the tax rate because that's just your water bill. So now your water rate's gone down, but it's been levied a different way because we still have to come up with that money. Does that make? I know. So does that?
Jared, we do have some online.
So let's have, Mr. Borkholder, looks like he has a question, a hand up.
Great, thank you. I have a point of clarification and then a comment. If you double everybody's assessment, your tax rate will be cut in half. So when we quote the tax rate and how low it is, we need to keep in mind that everybody's assessments went up. My comment is that we've all been significantly impacted by inflation. And we know that inflation has significantly outpaced increases in wages. And the net of that is that all of the people in your community are tightening their belts and figuring out how they make their budget work with the same amount of money. And I would recommend that this board tighten your belt, look at what projects you can put on hold, lead in the community, and ask the city of Canandaigua with their water to do the same thing. Like, lead in this community. This is not the time for you to increase the taxes because so many in our community are struggling to make ends meet in the current economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Comments from the board?
If I could just.
Yes.
John had just asked me about getting the budget information. So the town board will all get the budget at the same exact time. It always comes out by Labor Day. I'm actually hoping that you'll actually have it at the end of this week or next week in terms of the tentative budget. It'll include all the spreadsheets and everything. And then I would ask if you want to, or maybe at some point in time tonight or in the near future, you guys consider setting some budget workshops.
Yes.
I do have one more. I would like the 5 of you to remember these conversations because, only 2 of us spoke up. But there are many people in this community, like he said, that are struggling just to pay their regular bills, just to put food on their family, and God knows, put gas in their cars. And those of us that don't have a job, the gas is just kind of It's a fun thing. But anyway, I encourage you to take to heart what they're saying and do due diligence in doing a budget. That's what we all have to do individually, and it's up to you to do it for this community. And I expect that from you.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
If I just could.
Yes.
Just, this is no budget meeting, this is me in the public hearing on the budget. But the tentative budget that I will be sharing with you spends $69,000 more than last year. That's less than 3%. You know, the rate of inflation and everything else. So we really, in terms of the tentative proposed budget that I'll be presenting to you, we've done everything to work with staff to hold the line on expenses. These contractual obligations with fire and water, those are the outliers. Those are the ones that are driving these costs.
So if we didn't have those,
we could easily be
we'd easily be tax cap compliant with that. And can you the increase again?
69,000 over last year.
Yeah.
Out of 5.3 million.
Right. All right, thank you. Okay. Any other comments? All right, so this time I'll declare the public hearing closed. We'll move on to reports from town officials and department heads. Jim?
Just want to share with you real quick that I mentioned, Jared, that the signal is coming for cooling 5 and 20 shortly. It's coming shortly. The kit travel Coyote on the farm commission open in the next week, the week after. Our FEMA paperwork's been submitted to FEMA that Doug and I have been working on. We get that. We're just in a holding pattern with them. We submitted what we had to submit. If you want everything, they'll get back to us. So that's all.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see an assessor, no historian. Heather, clerk?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Lindsay is no longer, Lindsay is off. Okay.
Jared, if I could,
Yeah.
Sarah was on earlier, but she had to run. She sent me a text message. She just wanted to point out, it's not something we need to discuss tonight, but she did try to provide an update on some of the short-term rental stuff and the development office permits into her report. So it's worthwhile taking a look at some of those numbers.
Okay. All right, Doug, anything?
No, I sent.
Okay, and I don't have anything. I've said enough. I don't have anything in addition to the financial reports for tonight. All right, boards and committees, Adeline.
I'm not saying anything else.
Okay. Terry?
We continue to make progress.
Okay. John?
Just that we reviewed the site design and development criteria this morning, and we have a resolution in our packet to vote on.
Okay, Dave?
I've got some good things going on with economic development, got some people lined up and to get the committee going and a meeting next week as well. So should see some good news in the future.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Euler is not on. Mark, do you have anything else for Parks and Rec?
No, could you open my PowerPoint? Okay.
You have too much time in your hands.
I'm gonna go really quick here, but
Okay.
I really have to hand it to Lindsay and her staff. There was a flood at Ononda, they got cleaned up. The highway department had it cleaned up. There was a flood at Ononda, it got cleaned up. There was a new rec program with the YMCA. So all of these things have happened with Parks and Rec over the summer. So really hats off to the Lindsay and her staff. We haven't met since June. Our last meeting, we did provide input to MRB. They did a great job, so I'm very happy with that. I had a whole list of things that we can put off to later. Two very successful events. We had our concert in the park, huge turnout for the concert in the park, and we had our movie night the other night, and we had to move to the Civic Center because the wind was blowing the screen over, or gonna blow the screen over. Thought maybe with the change of venue, it was gonna be a kind of a poor attendance. there were, I'm guessing in and out 300 people during the course of the night. So with the food trucks, we had the ag committee there, which was awesome. So we've had some great events, a positive summer, and we're moving on to think more about MRV in our next meeting on Wednesday. So,
Thanks to Jim Fletcher on coming over and changing the sign too, because it was, we had people coming in and it said movie night tonight. And Jim on his day off swung over, reprogrammed the sign, and
It doesn't get a day off.
a lot of people came because of that sign change. So thank you, Jim.
That's fine.
Saving the day again. Yeah, one signing up, that's all in a day's work. I know Oksana, you presented a report for special events. Would you like to elaborate on any of that?
Well, I can read it. to the
Okay.
public, okay. Oksana Fuller, Chair of the Special Events Committee. The Town Special Events Committee and the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Alliance and designer Kurt Knobloch partnered to bring to life a 4th of July float that carried several themes. Protecting Canandaigua Lake by using LED flares during the Ring of Fire, promoting lake-friendly living signage, lake activities at our parks, and also advertising the April 2024 total eclipse, which is like a huge thing now. The float was spectacular due to the many helping hands that contributed to its design and construction. As a result, the float has been honored with the prestigious Most Outstanding Float Award for its unparalleled creativity. We designed, printed, and framed thank yous to present to the organizations, businesses, and volunteers. So some of those were Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association, Finger Lakes Visitors Connection, Spring Valley Gardens, Town Board and staff, kids and grandkids whose activities on the float were an audience hit, Tim Stryker with his antique tractor, and of course, the Town Special Events Committee. A special thank you to float designer Kurt Knobloch for his creativity and leadership in making it look easy when in fact it is hard and time consuming. We appreciated his time and effort. We could not have done it without him. Also, a big thank you to Jim Fletcher for letting
Yeah. Jim Fletcher night.
build a float for a super clean town truck
It was.
to haul the float. It was
Beautiful.
beautiful. And for making sure the float arrives in great condition to the parade. We had a beautiful flag banner designed to match the town's new gate signage, which we had on the float flagpole, and hope it can get placed somewhere at Town Hall. We also had navy blue t-shirts with the total eclipse design on the back for all float participants. The social events team is now gearing up for the 2023 Halloween at Onondaga. And we are going to be having a special meeting. I don't know if it was planned yet with Jim, George Heron, Linda Dworchak, and Dennis, because George Heron has presented a plan for the parking. And so we will need some help with that, Jim.
Whatever George says. Whatever George says.
All right, thank you, Ananda. Yeah, Oksana.
That's a flag.
That's a flag.
It's a great.
Yeah, that's an awesome flag.
That's great. That is wonderful.
Okay, so this can be used as a flag.
Why don't you move in front of that podium for the
Oh.
online?
No.
And we can use that every year, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep,
we
that's
can use it
great.
Every year.
That's beautiful.
It is beautiful, so. Have any ideas where it could be hung?
Yeah, why not hang one on a flagpole out in front of the town?
No, not on the flagpole, but as a banner, someplace at town hall. when
Couldn't we get more of those?
More of those?
Yeah, can we get that replicated?
Oh, sure.
Mhm.
for like $200.
Jan likes to
Doubt
spend
it's
money.
in the budget now.
That's gonna bring you up to $70,000.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
donation,
anyway.
but to have those at different locations.
Town,
I'm
if the
sorry.
town is willing to put that up in front of their town hall, I'd be willing to donate $200 to have that rep.
Oh, let's talk about it. Okay. And then I have something else for the town board and staff.
Mhm. Want it now?
I'm gonna do that from now on. I want this.
These are the thank yous
Aw.
that we did for all the businesses and organizations. And they have all the photos, or some of the photos from the 4th of July float event. So maybe
Thank
you
you.
could
Well,
hang this up someplace.
yes,
at
we
town
will.
hall.
Yeah,
Maybe next to all the trophies we have won.
definitely. Thank you. And I would add that it does show me with a power tool in my hand.
Am I with the
With the
power tool in
drill?
my hand too?
No, you're just standing there. Thank you so much.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you for helping.
All right. Cemeteries.
I'm happy to stay.
Karen said.
Karen, you're just happy to not be on the town board anymore.
Well, good evening. The Cemetery Committee has met 3 times this year. And I thank the board for considering Resolution 226 later on in your agenda this evening. Mr. Ellison's preservation work is necessary to preserve history. We put in some sweat equity at the Lucas Cemetery on Route 21. We cleared brush and cleaned up the perimeter mainly. We are formulating plans to participate in Wreaths Across America on December 16th this year. Our focus will be on the Hun and the Academy cemeteries for a total of 59 veterans. I just wanted to remind you, cemeteries are a homeland for memorials that are a sustaining source of comfort to the living. A cemetery is a history of people, a perpetual record of yesterday, and a sanctuary of peace and quiet today. A cemetery exists because every life is worth living and remembering. If you've ever visited any of our cemeteries, they're very peaceful, and they are quiet, silent parks in our town. So thank you for preserving our cemeteries.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Have a great night. Thanks.
Thanks, Karen.
I don't see, I am going to speak for the local history project team. I don't know if any of you saw, it went out on Facebook, I think it was last night or this morning. I can't remember when I clicked send on that little thing, but there is on the 30th of August, there is phase 2 of the historical survey for the town of Canandaigua. And there are going to be about 260 homes and buildings, schools, unit barns that will be recognized in this presentation that the group has. And about 100 are eligible to be considered to be put on the registry of historic places. So of those 260 identified, about 100 of them could be put on that registry of historic places. And Lois, you're on the history team. Do you have any comments?
Well, I'm not officially on it anymore because I rolled off in January, but I have seen the report and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just am only sorry I didn't buy one of those houses when we moved here. It's an amazing one.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information in there. And it's at the Cheshire Fire Hall. So if anybody can make it, 6 p.m.
6 o'clock.
Yep, and there will be, so things will be put online and it will be available digitally as time goes on. So you will have access to that if you can't make the presentation. But that is upcoming. Dennis, do you have anything for the tree team?
The next meeting is September 12th, North Park.
And I have to apologize because Dennis and I met about tree team business and then the flooding hit and then the wheels fell off and that is on my agenda and we will meet and discuss that and then we will talk here.
Someone is rewriting it, so it's professional.
I like that. Okay, you got Mark doing that for you? He's got time.
He said professional.
Yeah, true. All right, we do have another privilege of the floor. Is there anybody who would like to be heard at this time? All right, Oksana?
I was just wondering what the frontage, lake frontage. I don't think they mentioned it. How much?
Total?
How many feet total for the public?
That has not been decided yet. That is part of the negotiation as part of the amenity. So that we would request from them, that we would say, we want this amount of access. That would be something great to consider and say, we want as much as we can during the public hearing. So there is no set number. It could be anywhere from 60 to 140 feet of access, 60, 80, or both. So that's kind of where it'll be one of those, there's a 60-foot section, an 80-foot section, or a combined section. And you know where we probably, combined is always best when you're talking about lake frontage, so, okay. All right. Resolutions and motions. It's not bad, it's almost 9 o'clock.
We got to resolutions?
We got to We gotta pick up the pace here. We will be blocking them. Resolution number 191, acceptance of the monthly financial reports.
Second.
Moved and second, a discussion.
I have a very quick question, which is, Doug, Jim, everybody, how are we keeping track of the payments that will potentially be reimbursed through FEMA for storm damage? Like, for example, we had the bill in here for the mulch at Outhouse, for example. So we are keeping track of it in there, so.
There's a capital project which has been created. Additionally, Jim and I submitted a preliminary list of FEMA repairs.
Yeah.
All the different stuff, and then yes, all of those expenses will end up going through that capital fund.
Okay.
And look for July flood. It's tagged.
July 9th. It's actually late July.
Yeah.
Great, I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, they're all tagged in there. Okay, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 192, acknowledgement and authorization of budget transfers.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 193, authorizing budget transfer for Canandaigua Consolidated Water District relative to service and maintenance.
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 194, authorizing the budget transfer to H33 ARPA County Road 28 sewer upgrades from the general fund.
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
We just have Jim quick explain this like he did in the finance committee meeting. This is one of the ones, yeah, this was the 2023 to 2024 carryover one.
We need to continue the engineering with MRB for the public information meeting that we should be having in September to inform the residents of the cost of the project that we need to hire hopefully in 25.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 195, authorizing budget transfer to H38 complete streets from the highway fund.
So move. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution number 196, authorization of purchase of land by the town of Canandaigua, setting a public hearing on the use of open space funds. This
So moved.
attachment fund.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I'm really excited about this potential expansion at Arnada Park, fulfilling the goals of our parks master plan and the town comprehensive plan. I'd just like to confirm, we discussed in the finance committee, that this will potentially use both grant funding, open space funding, and CM Parks fund.
And with this, we need to make sure that we have discussion. Doug, I spoke with Kevin Levani. earlier today that we still need to go through the DEC process. We can start, I know where we have time that we need to be progressing. We might need another appraisal. They require two, and they just need to line up with what they require. All that would be reimbursable by the grant, and Kevin's gonna work on that tomorrow. But just be aware that to be able to access that grant, we need to jump through those DEC hoops to be able to access that money.
I think the big thing, and especially since the seller is still on, we want to move this expeditiously.
Exactly.
If possible, and then we can go back.
Exactly, and we can still, we can move with this, and then Kevin's got his thing, so we are going forward. We can go back and do it as well. So any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Carries. Resolution 197, adoption of a local law to override the tax levy limit.
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
Local law number.
Thank you.
7.
Local law number 7. We're behind by 1. And 8. Resolution number 198, setting a public hearing on the use of open space reserve funds for the acquisition of real property to protect open space and expand Ononda Park uplands.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Quickly, there's a typo in the heading here. It should say public hearing with a G on the.
Hearing. Doesn't it say, wait, doesn't it have the
Public hearing.
I'm not seeing it.
It's right in the title.
Oh, I'm not
Don't you
on
remember we
that.
talked about
I'm
the
not on that
finance?
page. I'm on the different page. I'm reading it from a different page. Okay. Or I fixed mine and I didn't fix anybody else's. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Carries. Resolution number 199, authorization for the town manager to execute agreement with MRB Group to complete a study on the construction of a new court facility.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just want to confirm again that we're planning to create a capital project for this.
So
We don't have one created.
there is not one created. This would be the engineering of the 2025, and then the town board would need to take really part of that full budget conversation in terms of if you're going to move forward past this, then that's a capital project with other alternative revenue sources.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Carries. Resolution 200, authorization for the highway superintendent to complete a phase 1A and B study for a new road off of Purdy Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. All right, I would like to offer up resolutions number 201, 202, 203, 204.
There's a correction on 201.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yep. Okay. Check that. Resolution number 201, maintenance bond acceptance for Pierce Brook subdivision, section 1.
Second.
So I assume there is discussion on this, so go ahead and bring that
Do you want to correct it,
to
Jill?
the table.
Or, I mean, it currently indicates Lakewood Meadows in the description, and I believe it's referring to Pierce Brook.
That's just a clerical change, not substantive to the project. So we don't need to amend that.
Nope.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I also have a question on the next one, so.
Yeah, and I thought I was gonna block all these. Resolution 202, Pierce Brook subdivision, section 1, acceptance of dedication of the roadway, Pierce Brook Trail, authorization for the town clerk to file necessary documents of Ontario County Clerk's Office.
So moved.
Second.
I'm
My
assuming
question that
discussion.
I brought up in finance, it does say on the sign and online, it's Pierce Brook. Oh, never mind, it's the second one, that's the second one. This one, I just wanted to confirm that we're talking about a roadway, not a trail.
Not a trail.
So, yes,
Correct. The name of the road.
yes,
Is trail.
Yeah, the next.
yes, it's the next one that I had that question on. So yeah, I have another on that one too. Jerry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 203, maintenance bond acceptance for Lakewood Meadow, section 90.
Someone brought up in
Oh,
streetlights.
We need to.
So moved.
Moved, Dave, seconded Terry. I assume we have discussion.
Someone brought up streetlights in finance, something on that. Is that,
So which version?
I had on 203, I had a note that's in finance, somebody said amend to include streetlights.
That was discussed at a line, but that was really an invoice, and so there was no amendment needed on the
Okay.
resolution. That was an invoice that just needed to be.
Perfect.
Further? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
Next one's.
Resolution 204, Lakewood Meadows subdivision, section 9D, acceptance of dedication of roadway, Arbor Hill Drive. Authorization for town clerk to file necessary documents at Ontario County Clerk's office.
So moved.
Second.
This is the one where it said trail in one place and drive in another place, and you were checking with.
I checked with Mike.
Yeah.
And he worked with 911 and do not have an answer yet.
Okay.
If it's trail or drive.
What do we do then? Lay it over? I don't know what, I mean, if we don't know the official name of the road.
No, because the dedication paperwork has a
It's-
legal description of the thing.
Okay, it was also mixed in the paperwork between trail and drive as well, so.
Yeah, it's the legal description that doesn't have the word Arbor Hill Drive or road in it.
It's just where it is.
Governs.
So it's covered in there
Yeah,
and it can be fixed.
Yeah.
just as a resident of Lakewood Meadows with a sign that's written two different ways and.
Just yes.
I really like to know the actual name of the streets that I'm working Okay.
All right. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 205, accepting the quote for the Quail Bush Water Main Replacement Project. So moved. Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. All right. Ordinance. Resolution 206, update to the town's site design criteria. Second. Moved John, seconded by Terry. Any discussion?
Yes. I'm gonna need help here.
So we had some changes in ordinance this morning.
I have page 14. I'm using an old item here, but it is under item N. It is bullet number 1. And it says sentence here about coating or waterproofing the concrete wall with a question mark.
Coating and waterproofing the concrete vault.
And I think we needed to divert to ask you for your opinion on it, Jim, whether the next sentence, which says the steel vent pipe is to be painted blue, satisfies the question.
Well, it should be PVC, not steel. Well, the steel must have been inside the motion.
There's a sentence here about coating or waterproofing the concrete vault.
We could include Cooper's Black, should apply twice to it. That's the name brand of the product, I'm sorry, that's what you're asking for.
Oh, no.
What,
Is that the section where we're saying a sentence should be added here? Is that what you're talking about? Let me try. I'll show you.
Or struck, whether one needed to be added, and whether it was already added, and whether it needed to be struck, or whether it needed to be inserted.
They usually come coded unless you tell them they're not.
Well, almost sounded like, does the sentence need to be there? The sentence, I mean,
There's a sentence here about coding or water.
does it need to be there?
Can we eliminate
If
that?
they come
sentence?
coded already. then-
They come coded already.
Well, then there's-
well, wait, hang on. I hate to make a decision like that or force Jim to make a decision like that on the fly unless you're super comfortable with it.
That's fine.
There's basically a sentence in it that says, should a sentence be added?
Yeah, it's
here?"
it's an
So we're
incomplete
confirming
statement.
with him that we can get rid of the sentence that says, should a sentence be added?
So we're comfortable striking that sentence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and the other one was. Under Article 9. Paragraph 9.3, landscaping. Right after the words inspected by the town of, it should say Canandaigua Water and Highway Superintendent. The word Canandaigua was left out. So that is a typo.
It's nothing.
Oh.
It's just a typo.
I believe that's the only two notes that we had. With those two amendments.
Okay, any further amendments? I think those are the two changes. You comfortable?
Yes.
Okay,
For me.
Yeah. No, I think there was a motion.
we had a motion, we had a first and a second. Now, those are two amendments, so can I?
John moved to make those. two
I will
amendments,
second
right?
that.
Yes.
Okay, so we have,
Adeline seconded. Okay.
so John made a motion for the amendments, Adeline seconded, all in favor of the amendments?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the amendments were approved. Can I get a motion for the resolution as amended?
Second.
Okay, moved by Terry, seconded by, say Adeline. All in favor of the resolution as amended?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, amended resolution carries. Resolution 207, setting a public hearing on a petition to amend the zoning code of the town of Canandaigua for 2907 Westlake Road, Canandaigua, from residential lake district to incentive zoning.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, John and Terry, any discussion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The address in the title of the resolution is inaccurate and should be modified to say 3907.
3907.
And it probably ought to say County Road 16
Yep,
also.
because that is the
And I think-
official name of the road.
And I think that ought to be consistent throughout the resolution, that the verbiage describing the road should be County Road 16 rather than Westlake Road.
Well, some of that is the name of their LLC
Yeah.
though too, John. Their LLC is 3907 Westlake Road
yes.
LLC.
Yes, you're.
That's why.
absolutely correct. So wherever it references the road in general,
Yeah.
Referencing the road, amend it to read County Road 16.
and that might be the only place that it does that. That's my quick review. Yes, I think that's correct, only in the title.
Only in the title?
The only place, yeah.
Okay,
Clerical.
and that's, I don't think that
Yeah.
is, that's not substantive to the, all right.
I'd just like to make it abundantly clear that this is not approving incentive zoning, this is setting a public hearing
Yes.
only. And that also we've instructed our town manager to make a website spot specific to this incentive zoning opportunity.
Any further discussion?
Yep.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 208, Town Board Appreciation for Storm Response of July 9th, 2023.
So moved.
Moved and carried, we'll say Terry moved it. Dave, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 209, supporting a joint meeting to discuss Sucker Brook water quality improvement projects and intermunicipal agreement.
So moved.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Any discussion? And, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, carries, and this will take place on the 20th of September in this room. Resolution 210, accepting the resignation of Deputy Town Clerk Rebecca Doyle.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. I'd like to thank Rebecca for her service to the town and wish her well in her future endeavors. Resolution 211, authorization for the town manager to execute the employment agreement with the water superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
If I can make a recommendation, Doug asked me to take a look at this comparing night.
Yep.
At the last minute here, I apologize for all of them. Add the phrase unless terminated upon good cause is the termination section for each and every employment agreement.
Those were in there.
See it.
Okay. All right, so let's take each of those individually. Is that okay?
Make a motion to amend all the employment agreements and then just.
Hey, can you block all of them? And make it one?
Is everybody comfortable? I tried it and I thought I had it,
then add one.
but Adeline
Hey, I'm just
blew it
bringing
up.
up stuff that came up in finance.
So I would like to, all right,
You can block the 215 is fine. with me.
yeah, okay, so I would like a make to propose resolutions 211, 12, 13, 14, and 15 as a block. So I'm making a motion to approve those as a block, so we just need a second.
Second.
Okay, so Mr. Nadler had suggested this, and I will make the motion. I make a motion that we amend each of these employment agreements to state.
Unless
Do we
terminated
have to
upon
vote on
good
the block?
cause. Yes, doing
Yeah.
two blocks.
So unless
Terminated.
upon good cause. Okay. All those in favor of amending these blocked resolutions and employment agreements?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. All right, so these amendments are now blocked. So can I get a motion to approve amended resolutions to 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15? So Dave and John? Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries, and these are approved as a block.
4 pages.
Gone, forever. On mine, it's like that much. I'm using the shorter version. Resolution 216, appointment of seasonal employees.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 217, accepting the resolution of motor equipment operator.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 218, accepting the resignation of transfer station operator.
Second.
Take your pick. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 219, appointment of motor equipment operators.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, we received an amended version of this resolution.
We did.
Today, here. I
Can we bring that?
But it's basically just, it had previously indicated Corey Rogers being appointed rather than continuing with the names that I'm gonna make Jen say, previously indicated, the new Cody and John.
Yes.
Okay, you don't wanna do that? Okay, wait, Oksana's here again.
Yeah. So we have in front of us amended resolution 20, amended resolution 2019. So let's do this. Let's back up and I'll pull resolution 2019 and I will put forward amended resolution 2019.
You have an amended resolution 2019. This one says 2023.
Well, it just didn't
That's
have,
the year.
it didn't have the
Oh, I'm sorry.
219
That's the
on
year.
it.
It didn't have the 219 after it.
Okay, 219.
I
Yeah.
think it was Sarah that emailed it this morning.
Yeah.
Sarah, yeah.
Okay.
Was it Lindsay?
So can I get a first and a second for 2019?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, resolution carries. For Chris and for Cody and John.
Right.
Yeah,
Cody Day and John B.
yep. Resolution 220, appointment of transfer station operator.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
carries. Resolution 221, update to the town of Canandaigua's organizational chart.
Second.
Okay, so I would actually, let me back up for a second. There was some discussion about laying this over. I know it is on the table. I know in discussion with the town clerk and discussion prior. There are some questions and to bring back just a cleaner version of it. There were changes and edits to it, but just to finalize that. So.
I saw another iteration of it this afternoon, I thought.
Yes.
Oh, there it is up there.
Yeah.
It's clear to me.
That's not the same one that I had. I don't believe.
No,
Yeah.
The one I have that you sent this afternoon is different than what's up there now.
No, exactly.
This is what you sent out this afternoon, wasn't it?
No, that's the original one. I sent you a link to what was originally approved and I attached. This.
Oh.
It's this. This is the only change that's been made. We moved
My
EHR
apologies.
from here
Yeah.
out to here, right here, just to keep it clean and
Yeah.
simple.
Yes, we have time. Yes.
Positions are color, positions are color coded, so there are places where we have people doing double duty, if you will. And
I would love to
between
see
the
just,
lines and the color coding, it's fairly clear. I think.
I would love to see just a little bit more discussion on this and approving it tonight.
And I did, in hearing that, like I mentioned, I had a conversation with Doug and I still want to clarify with Gene to make sure everything lines up. I know that there's some things that aren't changed, but I also just want to make sure that we're okay with that. You okay? So, yeah, and it has been, but I know that there might be some other changes that we can make as part of it. Maybe that's just coming from, I know.
Maybe we should pull it at this point and look at it another time.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend for that. You guys okay with that?
I am.
Okay. So we already have it moved and seconded. It's already on the table. So at this point, do we vote?
Yes.
Okay.
We're voting to lay it over.
Well, not, we're voting to table it. So we have time to come back. Layover is
Enforceable.
layover is forcible.
Yes.
Table gives time because I just want to get input on that side. And if there's a chance that it might not even change, but I just want to make sure that we have all that. I just want to, not to keep bringing this up, bringing it forward and just have it, make sure we have it one more.
So what are we
look at
voting
it.
on right now?
Right.
Table.
We're
So
voting-
yay
we
is
need to have
table.
someone
So
make a
let's,
motion to
so
table the
I will
resolution.
withdraw. So we have the amendment on the table, so we need somebody, I'll make a motion to table it indefinitely.
I'll make a motion to table it.
Okay, first, so John and Dave. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay. Okay, motion carries. Resolution 222, authorizing the issuance of facility alcoholic beverage permit to Sean Rothermel.
So moved.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 223, acknowledgement of the citizens. Actually, we're going to pull resolution 223. Sorry, I had it written in my other notes, but not in this one. So we're going to pull resolution 223 and strike that
Based on some discussions we had.
based on discussions and and we will be having a meeting forthcoming in the next couple weeks about that. Resolution 224, acknowledgement and disbandment of the Affordable Housing Project Team. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. And I would just like to thank Karen and the project team for the work that they've put in, and also the fact that I didn't mention it, but the county, there's results of a housing study are coming out very soon, and there are going to be meetings at college throughout the county presenting their findings. And a lot of that driving was from what started here and what started with Karen. So thank you very much for that. And everybody associated with that and your hard work, putting that out there.
Thank you all
So-
for letting us do that.
Mhm. So, and now it's, on to bigger and better things, and hopefully now that you're better, it's not better than you, but just larger scale.
You inspired the county.
Yes. So, okay. And so thank you for that. Resolution 225, acknowledgement and disbandment of the Gateway Sign Project Team.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Carries. And likewise, thank you, Oksana, and the project and the sign team for all the work on that. The banner that we have to display. And I know that you're planning on a celebratory ribbon cutting that you had mentioned. So be on the lookout for that. And they really stand out. Places that I don't go very often, I'll be driving and I'll be like, oh, look, there's our sign. Oh, I guess I'm back home again. Oh, I'm leaving home. So they do stand out, and they are more welcoming than town of Canandaigua zoning laws in effect.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's pretty welcoming, but that's nothing says welcome than zoning laws in effect. But anyway, thank you for that. Resolution 226, authorizing the town manager to execute agreement with Ellison Conservation for cemetery headstone repairs.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 227, authorization for the town manager to execute agreement with MRB Group to conduct the NEPA requirements as a result of the July 9th, 2023 flooding.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Carries. And again, I'd like to thank all those and the amount of work that's gonna need to be done between multiple departments, town manager's department, highway department, for the work tracking all of this. Because FEMA can come in and the governor can open up money, but then there are a lot of hoops to go through and they're gonna be tracking those hoops, and thank you for that. Resolution 228, accepting the resignation of the transfer station operator.
Wasn't that 218?
228.
We have another one.
Okay,
Yeah, we've had a couple. Two people.
Yeah, okay. So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussions? All in favor? Aye. Carries. Resolution 229, acceptance of the soil erosion control sureties.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That was on. You were a little late.
You're on record.
It's still you still got it in before luckily I have to turn all my pages because I was not using the long version. All right, can I get approval of town board meeting minutes from July 17th, 2023? And these were emailed this morning. And they were updated, the special meeting minutes from July 28th. Moved and seconded. Any discussion or changes or deletions or edits? All in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. All right, payment of the bills. Heather.
Utility abstracts dated 7/28/23 totaling $47,388.27. General fund $31,015.41. Highway fund $9,471.53. Water district $6,901.33. Town board abstract dated 8/21/23 totaling $584,650.42. General fund $162,682.45. Highway fund $115,699.81. Capital project $133,312.82. Lighting districts $1,167.50. And water districts $171,787.84.
There you go. Well done. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the bills?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Bills are paid. All right, let final privilege of the floor. Anyone like to be heard at this time? Okay, don't see anybody. Executive session, I do not have any requests. Any requests here? No? All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.